everybody. Welcome to Frame Trap. Today I am joined by Michael Damiani at the end there, and sitting right next to him, Brandon Jones.
Hey.
I'm going to be moderating you through this. I am Ben Moore. I think, I just realized, you do think, you hear something enough that you end up doing it accidentally. And Kyle always says moderating, and I always say hosting.
Yeah.
And then I was on the Easy Allies podcast. And
Moderator is pure bossman. I don't know where.
Yep. I just did it without thinking about it. Just be moderating you through. That's exactly how he says it, too. And it just happened. But yes, I will be moderating, hosting, whatever your preferred way of saying it is. I'm Ben Moore, and I'm kind of excited because we have some beginning podcast banter that we always do. And it was interesting. Jones just randomly brought up the Terminator Dark Fate trailer that dropped today, right?
Today.
Yes.
Yeah.
Today, okay.
Morning, yeah.
And I like Terminator. I would consider Jones like a Terminator super fan, and I know Damiani likes Terminator. Mm-hmm. And I just watched it. I just got caught up on it, and I know we're all fresh on it. And I want to know just your immediate knee-jerk reaction to Terminator Dark Fate. Because I have some opinions.
I feel like I'm carrying a large weight around when I think about Terminator. It's tough for me to get up running with that franchise again, just because I think there's just so much baggage. It's kind of how I feel with X-Men Dark Phoenix. It's like that movie could be good, but man, after just everything, reboots and weird, strange side stories and all of it culminating. So I'm not sure what I love. The Sarah Connor's a character. I love Linda Hamilton. I think she looks great in it. And so I'm very curious to see what she's going to be doing in it. I'm curious to see Schwarzenegger's role in the whole thing. But saying that I actually care in quotes is a stretch, I think.
Yeah, man. Jones, I really think you nailed a lot of my own feelings on it. And I'm glad that you brought up X-Men, because the movie that kind of broke my X-Men excitement, or at least in this very specific style, was X-Men Apocalypse. I saw that movie and I felt like my brain was rotting. You're just sitting. It was like I was just sitting there watching something, but not really processing it. It just ended up feeling like nothing. And Terminator Salvation was kind of the same feeling. I barely remember any of that movie. It was just so easy to check out on.
I put it off for so long.
Yeah.
And I remember pausing it. I went to go eat lunch or talk to Amanda for a second. So I paused the movie and came inside, and I was like, hey, everybody was really down on Terminator Salvation. I just started watching it. I'm like, I don't know. It's kind of interesting so far, and some interesting characters and stuff. And then you get about the halfway point, and it was like, oh, I got it. I got it.
Yeah.
See what everyone was saying.
I didn't see Terminator Genesis, I think kind of for that reason, just because the trailers and stuff, I was like, I don't know. And then everybody's response to it afterward was like, no.
Yeah.
And it's such a shame, because Terminator used to be an event, really. But Damiani, how did you feel watching the Dark Fate trailer?
Yeah, I feel the problem was I couldn't get invested in anything I was seeing in this trailer.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel emotionally attached to stuff, and it was a really big 180 for me. Because yesterday they revealed the poster, or a poster for it, which is Linda Hamilton.
Don't think I've seen that poster.
Walking down a road, and it's the day after Judgment Day or something. And I was like, okay, awesome. Yes. And everything about the premise of this movie made me very optimistic. It was ignoring the continuity beyond 2. And I kind of like that. I was like, I think they messed up some things in my opinion, and now it's Cameron co-wrote this. So this is more in line with his vision of where they should have gone with this. So I'm like, this is good. Linda Hamilton is coming back to reprise her role as Sarah Connor. Excellent. I'm I was really bummed she was not in the Terminator 3. Everything going well for it in my mind. I see this trailer. At the beginning, I'm a little unsure at first. The music, I'm like, okay, we're going for this kind of soft, ooh, it almost felt like the Game of Thrones finale song. I'm like, oh, come on. I've heard this type of music too much. Wasn't a new version of the Terminator theme that I was expecting, essentially. And then they show the new Terminator doing its ability, which looked like it was straight out of Genesis. I was like, is this actually ignoring continuity? This looks like Genesis shit all over again. And I waited to see that film to the last possible moment when it came out on home video and it was free on a streaming service, Ben.
Yeah.
It sucked.
Yeah.
It sucked so bad.
It looks like it sucks.
It was so bad.
Yeah, Salvation's half good, half bad, and Genesis is just bad.
Salvation had redeeming qualities, but it does fall apart. And I think that's been the problem of almost every one of the sequels since Terminator 2, is at least they've had some good parts in them, but they got progressively the worst parts were starting to dominate it. Like Terminator 2 was mostly good, okay, and then it just spiraled from there. And I was getting Genesis vibes again. I was like, "Oh no, this does not feel or look right at all." And the CG at parts did not look good to me. It just like Sarah Connor's reveal was kind of like trash to me. I didn't like how they in the trailer. It felt, oh, okay, that's how you're gonna reveal her like that. That has like this is you have James Cameron's name on this. Like James Cameron Returns. I'm like, this does not feel like any kind of James Cameron stuff. I know he's not directing it, but I feel like I'm being hoodwinked again. Like they're dangling names and they're dangling things in front of me. Like it's gonna be good this time. And now what I'm seeing, like a part of the finished product, I'm like, I don't think I'm buying what you're selling at this point.
I feel like tone seems to be really hard to get right in Terminator, and this Dark Fate trailer I think kind of exemplifies it because they have these very ridiculous action scenes, which is totally fine and expected, but the song that they're playing and just kind of like the cadence that the trailer has, no matter what's happening on screen, like it's just kind of doing this very like slow marching thing, and it just doesn't line up with what they're showing. And then when they finally get to the dramatic parts, I don't know, I just think it's kind of like the most generic expected thing, like, oh, you're like really human looking. I don't feel it. Like, it's just like, haven't we told this story like ad nauseum?
That's literally Salvation.
Yeah,
like, I'm a human robot.
That's
like,
the interesting part of Salvation.
I was like, are you ignoring the other films just to redo their twist? I was
right.
Like,
Also, I don't know either of these people. So we're watching this fight. There's this T-2000 or whoever who's in the truck. Is this one of many? Is this like the villain of this film? It's not really clear. Like, is this the guy that we're gonna be following the whole time, or is this the model that like it's gonna be him again and again and again? The final fight of this film is gonna be him versus Linda, or him versus this other robot or Terminator that we see. And I don't know her also. And it's tough because I think it's really smart to have as many questions as you can to fit in your trailer, because especially like the first one, because now I'm like, wow, I wonder, like a great twist is, even though you laughed when it came up, was seeing Arnold. Yeah. Because like he might not be Terminator, you know, like probably not actually. Like I think that would be interesting if he was like the designer or something, if they pulled like an Alien 3.
Yeah. It was an amused laugh.
Yeah. But like there's a lot of ways they could spin that, where having like the villain, like I do need to know what's going on. Like when you have him, you know, like very slowly becoming this thing outside the car. It's like, I don't know, wedge the gas pedal and then, you know, climb out the door. Like, I don't know why you need this big elaborate, you know, like I'm on the hood now. So it's just tough to know when she blocks it with her hand. It's like, it's an interesting reveal from a robot. It was like, is that hard for her to do? Right. I don't know. I don't really know what the stakes are. And I don't know who this little girl is. And another good question to have, but because I don't know, I don't care.
Yeah, that's a good point. That airplane shot at the end, just
like
I was so checked out. I was like, why? I don't care for this type of thing in a Terminator film. I obviously I haven't listened to all of your rant about Terminator 2, but one of the things I did like about the original Terminator 2 is how personal they felt.
Yeah,
the action scenes are really great, but they're not these flashy because you know the CG in Terminator 2 was just like new, and they were trying to like utilize it for like, oh, we just need this one effect to do it, but like they aren't these huge battles or anything like this, or like massive set pieces of things blowing up and like stuff. Salvation was bad at that. Part of Terminator 3 is bad at that, and that shot, like two planes crashing, I'm like, I felt like the most un-Terminator shot. I felt like the shot in Genesis trailer where Arnold said, "I'll be back," and jumped through like the helicopter. It's just stupid.
We don't see them in the plane, so I don't know. Like, what happened? Did somebody launch an EMP and these planes are crashing? Are these characters on either one of these planes? Like, I don't.
It's just eye candy. That's all it's supposed to be. It's not narratively like interesting.
I think it's a really good point that you bring up, Damiani, and it's a hard thing to articulate because I totally agree with you. Where a lot of that, to me, felt like typical action movie or like modern action movie in a way that just felt kind of bland. That there wasn't a lot there for me to latch onto, or it's like, oh, this is really exciting and new and or evocative of what I love about Terminator. Yeah, I completely agree with you. But more to come on Dark Fate. When is the movie coming out?
Supposedly, I think November is when it's supposed to come out. I don't know if they changed the release date or not, but that's Yeah, end of the year.
Yeah. Have either of you seen John Wick 3? Just really
No.
quick. Okay.
Gonna try and go see it this sometime in the next few days, hopefully.
I really like John Wick 1. I really, really like John Wick 2, and people are saying that this is the best one. So I'm excited to finally.
hearing.
I know people have just been ranting and raving about it. I can't wait.
have
whenever
to go
I
see
do get,
this.
whenever I do get
Yes.
to see it, I'm very excited.
Oh,
It seems like
yes.
it's worth it.
Yes.
And no one's ruined anything for me yet. So,
Same.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm excited.
Like, yes.
But what is also relatively new that came out that I've played some of, and Brandon, you've played some of, is Rage 2.
Yeah.
Brandon, I have some pretty strong thoughts on Rage 2 that I feel like I've kind of like casually leaked out before streams or stuff like that. And so I'm kind of curious. I didn't know that you were playing it, so I'm kind of curious to get your take on it.
Amanda's in it, full disclosure.
Yeah.
My wife is Gulo at the bar. There's like a glitch where there are 2 Gulos after you do the first mission for Marshall. Like, it happens to everybody. It happened to Huber. Multiple people have tweeted it at me. It happened to me. Like, right when you're done talking to Marshall and you, like, go back and he's like, this is my HQ. And then you, like, escape through the bar. There's, like, 2 of her, like, at the bar. But
Does the voice double up?
I don't think so. I think
Okay.
I think the one on the left is the actual, like, that's the one you can talk to, and it's just this random, like, character glitch
So
or
you're
something.
sitting there.
But I told her, I
playing
was
this
like, you're part of a
game.
glitch, hon.
Yeah.
I'm like, this easily recreatable glitch. Congratulations.
Is that weird? Like
good.
having your wife be a character in a game that you're just like casually playing through?
Totally, yeah.
Okay, all
Yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Like not weird in a bad way, just like, oh.
Well, it does kind of suck, and this is something that's like strange to tell close friends and family that are performers. But my brother's also an actor, and my brother does a lot of stuff on stage. My brother's played a lot of very complex characters. There's a lot of Shakespeare. And it's really hard for me to buy my brother as anyone. You know, like it's tough. And that's always the best compliment that I can give him. He just did The Crucible this last year. And after it, I went up to him. I was like, "You vanished, man. It was really cool. It was really neat to see you in that role." But when he's doing a comedy or he's doing something silly or something modern, it's just like, that's my bro.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious. I've only put exactly 5 hours and 1 minute into Rage. That was the save file that I did right before I got my car to come over and record this. And it's funny because it's like Rage 2, I recognize like has a lot of issues right off the bat. There's a lot of like talking about Terminator. There's a lot of like, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be invested in.
Right.
Like I have a sibling and my mentor's been taken out in the first mission. So like, okay, a little bit of a connection there, but like my character has a lot of personality for me not being attached to this person at all.
Right.
But I am such a sucker for open world. Like, here's this spot. There are bad guys there. Go clear it out. Go collect those things. Now it's done. Move on to the next thing. And so I can already sense that it's the same kind of vibe that I got from Mad Max, which I don't know if you played, but Avalanche also made.
I haven't. No, it's one that like people keep bringing up over the years, where it's like, hey, this is actually more fun than it seems. Or
wonderfully
something.
average.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I think that's probably a better way to describe it. I feel like a lot of people say like, it's just you're very much swimming in that pool of sevens.
But the thing about Mad Max is everyone's just tired in that world. You know, it's like it's just this beaten down, desolate, exhausted world. And so like everyone you meet is like, we're just trying to survive. We don't actually have a ton of hope. So there's like not a lot of boisterous personalities, not a lot of crazy bosses, not a lot of jokes that miss. Yeah. It's just kind of like the desert. And I've actually never seen, I kind of miss this in Days Gone, where like there's so many wide open areas. And so when you do this car combat, you can really just like kick up dirt and do these huge, circle around cars and get these big convoys and like hit them from all angles. Where Days Gone, there's just trees everywhere. So I was like, I can't really like, rev this thing and really like go, gun it out in the open road. And I think the environment is interesting in Rage 2, but there's just like lots of cliffs, lots of drops, lots of like, whoa, I almost fell off that cliff there. Or I was searching one area and like slipped off the cliff. And now I'm like, it took me like 5 minutes to get back to my car. And so the world is interesting in terms of like just navigating it was a lot more fun in Mad Max. But it's the kind of game where I could be easily critical of, but I know I'm going to finish because I'm.
It's ticking Brandon Jones boxes.
Exactly. This is just my type of game.
Yeah, I really like the combat a lot, and the more that I played it, the more impressed that I got with the combat. I think the ability, like it just has this kind of slight franticness to it, where it's not so crazy, but you always feel like there are a bunch of dudes hitting you from all angles. I love the guys just like batting grenades at you, and I think the mechanics in place really support that as well. Where like when you kill somebody, they drop these health shards, and it's like, okay, well, if you're getting shot all the time, that health can go down really quick, and so you want to get in their face, you want to be close to them so you can get those health shards before they disappear, and I really like that a lot. And you have this move where it's really great at peeling away armor, but you got to be close to them, and then you hit them, and they like get smacked into the wall, and so that's really fun. The weapons just also feel very satisfying to use.
Yeah.
A lot of people have talked about the shotgun, and rightfully so. Both that, just it's like regular shotgun blast, and like when you aim and you get that longer range slug, that's really good. So I like all that. It's just everything in between those moments where I'm fighting things that they're just kind of like, it's almost like some sort of bug or something that is just like, I start playing Rage and I'm like, oh man, that was a really fun fight. And then I just feel myself like slowly getting less interested in it until I reach a point where I'm like, I think I'm done for now. And like, the reason why I say that is there's a lot of talking in Rage 2, and I'm super not opposed to a lot of talking.
Yeah.
I think getting to go to these outposts or meeting these weird characters that look pretty ridiculous and fantastical and goofy and crude, like all this stuff, I think could be really entertaining. But like the story in Rage 2 is these authority guys are really bad, and you need to go kill them.
I played Rage, and I'm like, I'm not that mad at the authority. Like,
well, yeah, Rage 1 didn't have a great story either, in my opinion. Like, very, very forgettable. But, like, that initial moment where it's like, okay, these are the bad guys, you need to take care of them. Like, it doesn't really evolve, at least in the time that I've played it. Yeah. Like, you keep meeting these characters and they keep talking, and it's like, nothing is changing. Like, it's just... I get through conversations and I'm like, wow, like I don't care because I don't really think it's like it's trying to be like simple and complex at the same time,
right.
And it would really just benefit from being simple.
And Mad Max is simple.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
There's I don't know Mad Max.
You survive. Just go make your car better and go discover things.
Right.
And that's like the plot. You know, like even like in the end when some characters started to do important things, I was like, too much.
Right.
You know, like, no need. I kind of feel I'm actually curious. I would love to spend some time with Borderlands 3 when it comes out because all I know from those games is like the couple hours I played of Borderlands 1 and all of the advertising. Mm-hmm. But I feel like Rage 2 is also kind of like it's like you said, where it's like, you know, not only complicated or simple, but the just the general attitude of the world, how angry I should be, how because it's like the authority seems to be presented with this gravitas of like this empire that is crushing this world that we live in,
right.
And yet General Cross is like almost exclusively funny. Like right. General Cross, like very silly, very openly, you know, RoboCop 2 cyborg style.
Yes,
and so it's like make up your mind, like I almost kind of want it to just go completely absurd. You know, just go super nuts. That doesn't mean tell a joke every 5 seconds, but don't take any of this seriously because when you start to for a second, it's strange. When me and like my sibling are like, yeah, you know, I miss that person. It's like, I don't care.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just that focus would help it so much because I actually think it's most absurd when you're fighting. That's why I feel like Rage 2 has most of its identity. Just like the sound it makes when you get a headshot and like their brain just blows open, or the way that they're fighting, or the way that the enemies look, or like I said, that franticness. And I wish it would just amplify that. And I think that's something that Doom 2016 does so well, and why that game just resonates so much is because that focus is there and it doesn't stray from it. It knows what it's doing, it knows its strength, and it just enhances it.
Yes.
And I think that carries over into the open world. And I've seen a lot of talk of like, oh, maybe people are just, you know, fatigued with open worlds, and maybe that's true to some extent. But for me, the problem with the Rage 2 open world is like, I never care about the journey. I only care about the destination because nothing happens in the journey. Like nothing.
Right.
And like you're like, oh, I need to go to this town, or I want to go to this place to get this upgrade or to clear this outpost or whatever it is. And like nothing interesting happens. And we were talking about Days Gone in the last Frame Trap, and I was like, what I appreciate is I at least have some amount of tension when I'm driving, and I'm like, okay, well, I got to worry about my gas. Like, gas really depletes fast, and so it just puts something in my mind. I'm thinking about it. I'm engaging with some sort of system while I'm playing. And in Rage 2, I just feel like there's nothing.
There's traps that could pop up in Days Gone, survivors you stumble
sure.
across.
Yeah, or like some sort of, like a freaker will like jump on you and rip you off, but just like something. You have some level of moments happening.
Yeah. Wolves.
And like Rage 2, like going around to these different like canisters and getting new abilities is a really cool idea. And it's a good incentive to get out there and to try to find them. That's really, really exciting. But even the way that they present them, man. So like you go and you'll get a new ability and it's like, okay, we're going to like phase you into this VR thing and do this tutorial that just feels really, really slow. And we're going to do that every time you get a new ability. And it just feels, it kind of saps the fun out of it because afterward, they have enemies come after you. Yeah. And it's like, well, can't you just like teach me more naturally? Like these abilities aren't so complex that I could learn them on the fly.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just, I just feel like it's a game that's like constantly getting in the way of itself. I don't get it.
One super tiny nitpicky thing is there are canisters that you pick up that one thing that sucks about them is the icon on the map, even if you complete the main objective, if any one of the side things isn't completed, it's still highlighted. Like you haven't done that yet. And I'm like, And so
I imagine that would upset you especially. Yeah.
There's one area, even just in 5 hours, there's one area that's all gray except this one purple dot that's like, yeah, there's one canister you haven't found. And like, I'm not going to go back and search there. I've run around that thing. I have no idea where it is. Yeah. Giant purple cover on these things. I can't find it.
Doesn't even give you like an option to change like a filter to say like, stop showing me that instead.
I wonder, yeah. And I wonder maybe if later on in the game, because you can scan for stuff, I wonder if you can maybe scan for those later on to like, that would be nice to just like, okay, now go back to all of the locations. You have one missing and then you can go and find it. When you pick it up and it's either like energy that you need to upgrade stuff or money, it'll like wait a second and then you get it. It'll be like, oh, you did it. Like you'll like knock the cover off and then like 2 full seconds goes by and then like, haha. And I was like, oh, do I need to like grab it? Like, am I like standing near it and then that to go into my inventory? And then I finally did one where I just grabbed it and walked away and it triggered and I was like, oh, it just takes 2 seconds for no reason. Like the menu's also like just slow to get through it.
Right.
Like just loading each page. It's a weird.
Yes. And that's it. That's the feeling where it's just kind of like a bunch of these little things that add up. And they ultimately, like over time, after like an hour, I'm like, yeah, I'm good. And Days Gone is also a frustrating game, but it's really strangely balanced in a lot of its ways. It's just like I think you have a developer that's made the biggest game they've ever made and just weren't sure really what systems to lean into. And then you have something like Rage where it's like everything's pretty mediocre except the combat is a 10. Like it is perfect. Like, it is really
it's so funny just to have this one element of the game just completely dominate everything else. And I'm still going to play it. Like I'm kind of excited to go back tonight and crack it open.
There's great, that combat is really, really fun. It just, I think it's hard for me, and maybe if I just like walk away from it a while, I'll get over it. But it's just like, no, just do that. Just focus on that. Keep that. It's enough. Make that thing more interesting. Make the areas that you're in more involved. Like, just enhance this one thing that you're doing really, really, really well. So I'm playing on PC.
Yeah, me too.
Oh, nice. Okay, well, I was actually hoping you were playing on console because I was like, it looks good. It runs really well on PC. I'm not having any issue. Well, the only issue that I'm having is I'll talk to a character and like I'll see their subtitles and their mouths are moving, but I'm getting no audio. And then like after a while, or I'll do something that'll phase back in. But that has been consistently happening. Other than that, though, it hasn't been.
I had a couple glitches.
Oh, okay.
I had one. The first area I went to, I killed everybody, and the battle music stopped, and they were like, "Kill everybody." And I'm like, and I didn't know I could scan and look for people, and so I didn't. And I got in my car and drove off, and then like did a bunch of other stuff. And then eventually went back, and they just respawned all of the enemies. And so that time when I cleared it out, it did it.
Yeah.
But I was like, "Ooh, first checkpoint, not a good start."
How do you feel about the driving? How do you feel like that feels?
It's weird. I like the Mad Max obviously is kind of something more akin to like a Camaro or Dodge Charger or something. You know, it's just like a muscle car. And this is definitely, Huber nailed it. It's the Tumbler from Dark Knight. And and it's a little too tanky for my tastes. Like
Yes.
I'm a Grand Theft Auto guy, and those cars are very like some people complain because they think they're too slippery. I like that. I like just kind of a natural drift to cars. And I'm getting better at it. Like I'm getting better at the boost and slide like into turns. But like I said, there's just cliffs everywhere. It's like every time I'm on a road, there seems to be some kind of like thing I shouldn't drive up to the left of me or something I need to be aware of on the other side.
Yeah.
And so it's rare that I can just like take off. But I love the one thing that's definitely like almost exactly the same as Mad Max is just it's fun to drive up to a spot, get out, clear it, and then go back to your car. Same as Days Gone. You know, it's fun to have that connection to a machine that's getting you around the world, and you kind of like get to respect it. But much like everything else in the game I don't care about, they're just like, poof, you have a car. And I'm like, oh, great, okay. Like there's I didn't steal it from somebody, I didn't win it in some way, like there's no attachment.
Right.
You see your garage, it's like, oh, I can have a bunch of different cars. Okay, so.
I do like that it's so easy to call a car like, hey, like.
Oh, I haven't gotten to that point. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like
driving around.
I run around and it's like, okay, well, I need my car here. You just open up the menu, hit the button, the car is right there. It's like great. Awesome.
And there's a ton of other cars. There's lots of cars by the road.
Yeah. So
there was one camp I went up to, and they had this huge car with like guns on the top. Like parked in front, and I was just like, whoop, and got inside, like boom, 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 like. So it's neat that you can steal stuff, and you can.
Well, you can also just like drive up to these outposts and just use your car to just wreck people.
Yeah. There'll be little crowds of guys. You can just like boost through them, and
your car will
splat.
take damage, but it's really easy to just like walk in front of it and heal it, which is cool. And yes, there are a bunch of other cars, and I haven't used all the cars, not even close. But I get that that's kind of the point, is to get other things and try them out. But I also feel like the thing that they give you should out the gate be fun to drive. And I just recently played through Arkham Knight. And I really loved the way the Batmobile felt, because you would get in it and it just had such a tremendous sense of speed.
Yeah.
It was like, this is fun to zip around in and drift around corners and stuff. And there's just this like sluggishness. I feel like not only with the acceleration, but with the turning in Rage 2, that I can do it.
Yeah.
But I'm not having a great time.
It doesn't click right away.
Yeah, it just isn't gelling, and that's been frustrating too, because you drive a lot.
Yeah. It's a big bulky car. I
yeah.
think that's kind of the issue. It's just it's a big chunk.
Yeah. I don't know. I was pretty like, I think Rage 2 is fine ultimately. Like I think it's fine. I see a spark there that I wish just could have shown a little bit brighter.
I'm also at that like magical point for me in open world games where I get it now. You know, it's like, that's how I level up my car. That's how I level up my guns. I can start to tell what I don't want to level up, like parts of a skill tree that you're like, you know, like I'm comfortable now because I'm not, because it'd be intimidating. Like you see like all of your options at the beginning of the game. You're like, what has value? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, and not only just in general, but for me, like what's going to fit to my play style. And so like at around 5 hours, I finally hit that point where I'm like, I got it. Like I'm starting to recognize like what the different icons mean on the map and what to expect when I go to certain locations and what to prioritize when I get to a new area, and like should probably go find those arcs first because I'll get those new abilities and then I'll do other stuff.
Yeah, the leveling up stuff, there are a lot of options and like a lot of things that you can get, and I do think it's cool, the idea of like, hey, if you do these tasks for this person, you'll get things from them, and they all have their own like areas of specialization that you get when you're leveling up. But just like naturally, I felt like I was getting a lot of the currency that I needed to level up, and so I didn't have to think that hard about it.
So there are three Damiani, there's three main protagonists that you do missions for, and the first one you meet like right away, like you really can't do anything. I think you get the car there too, like they like send you to this first spot, and then there's these two other characters, one that's the older version of the role that Amanda played in the first Rage, Lucem Hagar.
I thought you were going to bring up the scientist dude that was from the first Rage.
She's the first Rage too. Yeah, she's the first character you meet in Rage 1. She's like, well, teach you how to use a wing stick, which is so she throws the wing stick at you in the second one. But I haven't met the two other characters, and I'm level 4 with them. Because like the way I play open world games, I just go. I just literally just start.
He's doing their activities without like having and gone and met them. Yeah.
So like their face shows up, and it's like ding, like you have more options with them, and I'm like, who? They like one NPC mentioned them, like he did say. it's the three of us. You should go. Like it definitely they seem like the trifecta, like they're introduced as such. But it does crack me up that they're like, I'm further along on that tree on that person I'll meet soon.
Yeah,
it's a weird game.
It is. It's a weird game.
Pretty though, and the open world is neat because lots of stuff happens really far away.
Yeah.
There's one like random pit stop I went to that had no enemies or anything. It was just like grab a couple items and then you're done. And I heard explosions and like looked down and there was a little like suburb that was all blasted out way down at the bottom of a cliff, and I could just see like into like enemy, like the mutants and the survivors or something, like, you know, waging war.
I think the effects in combat look really good. I think the environments generally look really good. A lot of like the town NPCs don't to me. They sometimes they almost look like they're from a different game. Like I think the major characters do, but there's a pretty sharp difference. Yeah.
Like some of the characters from Rage 1 still hold up.
Yeah,
like,
they really focused on them quite
excellent.
a bit. Yeah. Damiani, when I got into the studio and I was setting up Frame Trap, I could hear it was utter giddiness. That's the only way that I can describe it. You were watching the Final Fantasy XIV live letter talking about new stuff in Shadowbringers. Obviously, you're very into Final Fantasy XIV. You're very excited for Shadowbringers, and it was a delight. Like not seeing what was going on, like not knowing what you were watching, but just like hearing you laughing with delight in the other room. I was like, all right, he's having a good time. So what is it that you saw that made you so giddy?
So yeah, the live letter today that before we recorded is going over some of the major gameplay overhauls that will be happening in Shadowbringers. Mm-hmm. So to back up and preface that just a little bit, Square Enix has been doing a media tour for Final Fantasy XIV. They went to Europe last week. They came to North America this week. I got to go to the preview event for that as well. And I got to basically as I was watching the live letter, it was basically the same presentation we got there. So a lot of me like laughing, like the purpose of me watching this was I'm not reacting to this. I already know this information. I was watching chat and like some other streams, them going nuts, seeing this. And also a little bit of it was me finally getting to let out the excitement because there was a press day and an influencer day. And I'm pretty sure on the influencer day, it's totally cool to like, you know, holler and cheer and stuff during the presentation.
Yeah.
Whereas like on the media day, like people might laugh like cordial and be a little more cordial, but no one stands up and shouts. No one like gets like really excited about stuff. It's like this kind of like unspoken like business professionalism that you have to like display there. So like while they're announcing certain things, deep inside I'm like, yes, and it's like, but I can't do that. So I was like, I'm letting it out now. So it's partially me finally getting to release those emotions I had to kind of pent up, but also seeing other people finally getting to see the information and be like, holy shit, they're doing that. And it's really awesome. Like it was really fun to do that. But I also wanted to mention the event thing because they haven't revealed everything yet. So I can only talk about what was shown there because the impressions are basically embargoed to next Wednesday. So like how I felt jobs played and stuff, I can't talk about that. But I can talk about everything they talked about change-wise. And the reason I'm so excited is because they are making pretty big changes to 14, Ben.
Well, I would hope so.
Yes.
It's a new expansion.
Yes. It's not just like new content, though. I'm talking about like old systems being updated and addressing complaints that have been kind of like dogged certain aspects of the game for like years, potentially.
So everything that I feel like I've seen, it's a lot. They're doing a lot, and that seems to be what you're emphasizing. What is the number one, like, yes, make your heart sing thing in Shadowbringers so far?
For the broader community, they basically redid Machinist. So
why is that a big deal with this particular job?
So when they introduced the Machinist, it was, oh, cool, a gunner class. This is going to be cool. But a lot of its mechanics have kind of not gelled together very well, and it's been dogged by various issues. They've tried to update it. The people don't find it as viable as other, like as Bard, its companion range physical DPS class. There's like they don't think it was like so clear and self-explanatory what its mechanics were doing compared to other jobs. And in the live letter today, they unveiled a video showcasing Machinist doing its new stuff.
Cool.
And you start seeing it do all these new types of moves that aren't gun related. Like, what the? It's like, whoa. It's not just using a gun and shooting. And then there's this moment, Ben, where it summons a mech robot by your side and fights with you. Like Rock'em Sock'em Robot, dude, just like runs in and charges the enemy. It's like a pet, essentially, like fighting with you. And it's like, oh, what the hell? Where did this come from?
It was very cool.
I
can confirm. It was a neat-looking robot.
I feel like on the inside I already know the answer, but can you get in the mech?
I don't know. I don't think you.
So you're saying there's a chance?
I didn't play as Machinist at the event, so I can't even answer that question if I wanted to.
Yeah.
But in the video, it looked about the same size as your character, so I don't think you're getting into it. I don't think it's going to work. But it looked exciting again to maybe play it. It looked like they just done so many things different to it. Another similar moment was with the TheDarkKnight class, which also people have been debating whether or not it needs to be like overhauled or anything like that. And there's a moment in its exhibition of moves where it just like grabs its chest or whatever and like pulls out like soul, and it summons like a shadow clone of itself, and the two of you start fighting together, and it's doing its own unique moves. It's not mirroring you. It just starts doing its stuff, and then when it's done, it like kneels down before you and invades. I was like, oh, like it's like how cool it looks.
Right.
The RP behind like these jobs, like they're really playing into that, it seems. And they are clearly trying to like make every job interesting again, at least, especially the ones that had been dogged by criticisms.
Yeah.
They look like they're getting the most like love this time around.
Yeah, what I love about this is I feel like when you get updates and expansions for classes, or in this case jobs, it's like exciting to the people who play it, but everybody's just like kind of staying in their lane, where it's like, okay, well, I play this, I'm familiar with this. I'm excited about these things, but it probably wouldn't excite anybody else. Like when you're saying you're summoning a mech and a shadow clone, that is just like so fun and creative and awesome that it like, even if you didn't care about those jobs before, it might bring you in. And I think that is really, really cool. But there are also new jobs in Shadowbringers.
Yes.
And now they're competing against these reworked jobs. How are they faring in terms of your own excitement level? And what are those jobs?
So the new jobs are Gunbreaker, which is a new tank class, and
Which has a gunblade.
yeah, it does. And Dancer, which is a ranged physical DPS class. People thought it was going to be a healer.
I thought it was gonna be support. It's not.
And Jones watched the video with me without sound, and like that's interesting to hear, because I think when I was reading chat, people are like, is this just like a support class, or is it actually a DPS class? You know, but you not even knowing what it was, you probably guessed it was a
weird.
healer.
It was a weird angle because they were like, a lot of the abilities they were doing were on like dummies basically, and there was someone else behind the dancer. So I'm like, and they were like,
yes,
like, the dancer would cast some things, and then some things would come back to the dancer. So I'm like, what? Why is
so
did a little DPS at the end? It looked like, but
fortunately we had to leave after that video, so I don't know what specifics they went into. So I can't tell you what those moves technically do yet without running the risk of saying something I'm not supposed to.
Sure.
But I can at least say you're getting it right. Like they are doing stuff. They're clearly doing stuff that's supporting or doing something to the other party member there, while they're staying in the back. They were doing a lot of dancing, like a lot of like musical stuff, without actually doing any damage to the target for an extended part of their exhibition. So it definitely looks like, oh wow, they have major support tools that like clearly are gonna like do stuff for the party when you fight. And then it started to showcase their own DPS moves as well.
So with those DPS moves, and this is admittedly a bit of a silly question, but is the dancer, when you're doing like physical range DPS on a target, are they hurting them with the power of sound?
They got they don't want them to call them chakrams, but they're chakrams.
Okay.
So they're like tossing those. Like,
Gotcha.
They're juggling them, just throwing them at them. They come back to you like a boomerang.
Okay, that sounds pretty sick.
Yeah, that's their visual representation of their weapons.
Nice.
Yeah, because you'd think like, oh, they're just going up there and dancing. To
Yeah,
the person.
right.
Like,
Right, like, well, they have to. How are they interacting with the? Yeah.
that makes sense. That's a very valid question to ask.
Sure. Between the two, and again, I you know, obviously there's a lot that you can't go into, but between the two new jobs, is there one that just conceptually seems more interesting to you?
Oh yeah, but this is not based on anything I played, but before this week, I was definitely drawn more to do Gunbreaker, just because they had talked a little bit about the class. They alluded to that they could use their gun to shoot other people to buff them. That they would use their like ammo essentially to like enhance moves, and just their combat, their style of combat looked very fast paced.
Nice.
And it looked like a little bit more of a dimension to it. I can't say one way or another that ends up being true, but it looked visually very interesting to play. Conceptually, what they were talking about really appealed to me. I played the other tank classes, and they're all fun in their own ways, but this looked really intriguing to me.
Yeah.
I'm a little biased because when they announced Dancer was not a healer anymore, and essentially was another range DPS. I mean, there were only two, but another DPS in general. I kind of tuned that out a little bit. I was like, I'm not as interested anymore,
Sure.
and I'm definitely more interested in Gunbreaker.
So something that's interesting about Shadowbringers is not only do you have these really ridiculous things that you're talking about, but like from an outside perspective, I can imagine new people are like, "Oh man, gunblades are cool! Like I want to jump in." And the thing for me is like Final Fantasy XIV. Part of what makes it so appealing is its storytelling, and it has a really dense story that is actually once you get into it, is pretty fun to follow. But it's super dense, and so like, is there any way that they're kind of bridging that gap for new people where you can get in and you can enjoy the story even if you are new, or do you have to go through all that old content?
So I'm not sure about one way or the other if they're doing anything to address new players coming in. What kind of support they're going to get to catch up, whether they have to go through the game. Obviously, they have like jump potions, and then there's a way to skip the story to catch up to the current expansion.
Yeah.
And you can go back to an inn, and there's this a book called the Unending Journey, I believe it's called, and you can watch previous cutscenes. So you can actually go rewatch all the main story cutscenes if you want. But there's no like what Kingdom Hearts 3 did, like the story so far, and like here are the main points. Nothing like that exists in the game right now. But I feel like the story of Shadowbringers might lend itself better to new players because it's no longer, as far as I know, it's not continuing the saga of us versus the Garlean Empire. I mean, that's definitely at the forefront of the cliffhanger at the end of Stormblood's last story update. But the premise of Shadowbringers is we're going to a whole nother world.
Gotcha.
There's like 13 dimensions, 12 or 13 dimensions. I'm sorry I'm getting this wrong. I'm not the lore expert of Final Fantasy XIV, but there are other dimensions.
Gotcha.
And we're going to one called the First. And well, it's like think of it like Majora's Mask. I'd almost say like Termina essentially. And there'll be like other versions of like it looks like the same race, but they're called like one of the new race is called the Hrothgar or whatever. And in this new world, their name there is actually Ronso, which is like, a nod to Final Fantasy X and Kamari's race. And they're doing that with all the like established races as well. But the story it's going to be kind of new and fresh. Like, I think you could jump in and be like, we have to go to this world for some reason. It's another world with its own unique story. And there are a few things you might need to read up on, but I don't think it's as heavily you don't need as heavy of an investment as if they decide just to go right. Like we thought we were going to the Garlean Empire's like kingdom essentially. We thought we were going to Garlemald and we're going to go fight the Empire. And it's like that's on hold for now.
Yeah,
we're going somewhere else. A little like almost like a side story. I'm like, okay, this is nice. This is perfect for people to catch up.
So when you say going to a whole new world, I think that's really exciting, and still like one of the biggest high points in my time with MMOs was Burning Crusade in World of Warcraft, and going to Outland for the first time, and just how wonderfully alien it was, and just seeing these giant Fel Reapers walking around. It was a really cool like moment because it was so different for me than everything that came before, and it just had like this kind of this intimidating presence to it that made it fascinating and like fun, and it felt dangerous to explore this world. Do you feel like because we're going into a new world in Shadowbringers that it has that? Does it feel sufficiently different and fresh?
Absolutely, Ben. They've shown off some of the new zones previously in the FanFest updates. And it was finally one of my biggest criticisms I think I have now that Stormblood has been out for so long. I didn't particularly like those new zones as much as, say, Heavensward or even a Realm Reborn's zones. I think conceptually, Realm Reborn has like some of the most intriguing, most outlandish looking zones, like very traditional, but very like this belongs in a fantasy game zone.
Yeah.
And in Stormblood, there wasn't as much of that. It was very much rooted in like Far East or like a desert, like civilization type theme, which is still unique, but very reality based, nothing too fantastical. The first 2 areas they showed off for this new expansion that we saw in action look insane.
Cool.
Like one's like there's a new fairy sylph, like a fairy race. I forget their name if they even revealed it. That is a beast tribe, and their zone is like looks like something out of like the Wizard of Oz. I would say it's very like really unique use of color palette. Very like there's this giant castle on top of this like hill in the middle, but like then there's like water and these like lush purple, like looks like almost like cherry blossom trees, but they're cherry blossom like fields. It's just it doesn't look like anywhere that exists in our reality, and I'm like more of this. And then they showed another zone which looked even more insane with all these blocks. Like it looked like it'd been warped by like gravity and stuff. It was just like, okay, I like this. This is what I want more of. And I think people who are jumping into this are going to be like, this is the most unique looking zones I've seen. Mm-hmm. Like these are very unique looking zones, and for veterans to be like, I haven't seen something this outlandish in a long time, and it felt good to see it.
Man, that's so awesome, because not just MMOs, but particularly MMOs and really most games, like A Realm Reborn has been out for a while, and the amount of excitement that people have over this new expansion, and just hearing you report on it and how many beats they're hitting like so correctly that sounds so great. It doesn't, the fact that it's not just like, yep, more of the same, like it's an update in the way that you would expect an update, that it's really doing new things in this game is awesome. And like that's just kind of my own experience, and what I've heard people echo time and again is just how well Final Fantasy XIV treats its players. And that is really, really cool. I don't know if either of you have gotten a chance to play this yet, but the thing that I'm most excited to talk about on this show is A Plague Tale: Innocence. I've been playing that, working slowly through that, and I didn't know anything about this game, really nothing, other than Hubert saying like, "Hey, it's cool," and it's just been kind of this magical experience of being like, oh yeah, I'll check out this game, this fun little thing, and being like, oh no, like this is way more polished and awesome and well written, and just blowing me away in a lot of ways. And what A Plague Tale: Innocence is you play as this brother and sister, and so far in the beginning of the game, at least, you're primarily controlling the sister and leading this little brother around. And there is this plague. There are this sea of rats. This year has been like a lot of swarms of enemies. You've got like the rats in A Plague Tale: Innocence. You have the zombies in World War Z. You've got the
Days Gone.
In Days Gone. Yeah, but yeah, the pacing of this game is really incredible, because you kind of open up and everything is fine, and then without any real hard spoilers, everything is very not fine. And what I like is you're playing as these younger people who don't really have the benefit of like fully analyzing everything or getting these huge exposition jumps. Like the safety for themselves and the safety, like the sister trying to protect the brother, kind of prompts this need to constantly move forward. And I love that. There's just such a great momentum to this game where you're getting little tidbits of information, like why is this happening? What's going on? What problems are specifically afflicting us? But there's always a more immediate need, like, oh shit, the rats broke in, we gotta get out of here, or these bad men are chasing us. And it makes it constantly exciting and constantly tense. And boy, do I hate taking care of like other people in video games.
Right.
It's almost universally sucks. And as soon as I realized like, oh man, like I'm gonna have to lead this little brother around and like tell this little brother to go and do things, I was like, this is gonna be miserable. But it's not. It hasn't been so far, and everything has been so intuitive and smooth, and things that you think would be so tired and played out at this point. Like you do a lot of sneaking, and you do a lot of like, okay, I'm going to throw this jar and distract this enemy, and they're going to walk over here, and I'm going to throw this rock and make this noise. And it's like, okay, I've seen this a bunch of times, but there's just this clarity to A Plague Tale: Innocence that I really, really like, where it it feels natural. Like you have a lot of those moments where it's like, if I do this thing, it will cause this reaction. And that reaction will allow me to go through, and you can just piece it together. Because what can be so frustrating in stealth games is when you're not having that clarity, where it's like, wait, how did they see me? Like, where do I go to be safe? What thing do I have to do to get through here? When it's just a bunch of that, it sucks. And so far in my experience with the Plague Tale Innocence, it hasn't been that. I'm on chapter 5, I think. And it's just been really good. The writing as well. I think it's hard to do kids. I think it's hard to do kids in a situation where the world is literally falling apart around them. I think it's easy to be like, to baby them too much, to have them be too whiny, and then that becomes annoying, and then you don't care if they live or die. But the sister especially like acts with this maturity that doesn't feel unnatural. Like she's still very much a kid, but that maturity, I think, really endears you to her and makes you want her to succeed. And yeah, I like don't have many bad things to say about it. It is an intensely linear game, I guess. Like you're very much being like, okay, this is the path forward, and I will do these little puzzles, stealth puzzles, as I charge forward. And there are upgrades you can get. So like in the world, you can pick up things, and then there are workbenches scattered throughout where you can upgrade stuff. So you can like carry more things, and that's fine. It hasn't been especially intrusive, and it does give you, I guess, some reason to poke around a little bit and not just completely crit path it. But the upgrades haven't felt super consequential so far. There hasn't been anything where I'm like, oh man, like that's making this a lot easier. Maybe it'll come, of course, but so far the crafting just feels like something where it's like, does every game need to have this? And so therefore this one has it. It hasn't really made like a super strong case for itself, but it's not like really taking anything away either. But it's awesome. I really recommend, Brandon, like I know you especially are into very like narrative driven games, and this seems like it's short.
And gothic environments.
Right,
and,
gothic environments, yeah.
I'm hearing a lot of comparisons, not in gameplay at all, but just to kind of aesthetic, and you getting a sense that this is clearly a developer that was really excited about this project. But
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of lines drawn to Vampire, where systems were kind of frustrating, but it's like a very deep game, and just the mood is really great. And yeah, I'm like slowly stacking up games to play in October. I'm like, okay, the Plague Tale, right? And Castlevania Collection came out. I was like, put that on the list.
That's interesting that you've kind of heard, because it's been nice. I feel like I've been sort of playing this game in a vacuum. Like I've definitely heard that other people have been praising it, but I haven't really got into the nitty gritty of what other people have thought. But you mentioned that people are saying like some of the systems are frustrating, because that makes me worried. I'm like, oh man.
No, the systems are frustrating in Vampire.
Oh,
Sorry.
I see.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
gotcha.
yeah.
Not
no,
in
this
a Plague
seems very
Tale.
straightforward.
Yeah.
Um,
and that's been my experience for sure.
And another thing that's frustrating in stealth is just that's not what I wanted to do. I didn't know that tool would do that. I didn't know that button did that thing. You know, like, yeah. So the fact that it's intuitive helps in stealth, because you want to feel empowered. Right. You know.
And there's been I feel like there's a lot of effort put into thinking through the situation, and like, yeah, you have crazy moments, of course. Like there's definitely a fantastical side to A Plague Tale Innocence, but it always also feels very grounded. Where like in a lot of games when you're stealthing, like how many countless games is it like sneak up behind dude, push button, instantly kill them, and it just seems to become like this kind of default expected thing. And it's like, well, you're this kid, you're not gonna do that. What are you going to do? Well, you have this sling. Okay, how would you interact with the sling? And it's like, okay, this guy has full armor on. You wouldn't just take him out. You have to tactically target the armor, dismantle it, and that's how you deal with them. And it's just like an extra layer that I appreciate. It just feels a little bit more believable than just doing the typical video game thing. I think is really, really cool. But yeah, I don't remember how much it is, but I don't know. I think it's worth it. This game, it's always nice when you have those games, because there's a lot of things we talk so much, you know, because it's our job, where it's like, okay, we're definitely looking forward to this. Let's learn more about that. Let's go to these appointments. Let's really drill down into this game. It's always nice to have at least one game in the year where you're like, I did not see that coming, for sure.
I like being in that perspective, doing the voiceover for our reviews, because I get all these scripts, and so I get to, even if I know I'm not going to play this game, and even if I haven't really seen a ton of gameplay from it, it's neat to get a fun, unique perspective and learn about stuff, and then like carry that knowledge forward. And yeah, this was definitely a script where I was like, oh, I'll play Tale, and like fast forwarded to the end, saw the score, like, oh
yeah,
and then like, this is gonna be interesting. And then like as I'm reading it, like, wow, Huber's really excited about this.
Yeah,
and you could kind of feel that from Huber as well. We're like, where did this game come from?
Right. Yeah.
I'm really glad to hear this game's getting this reception, because I saw it last year at E3. Like,
did you?
Appointment, yeah. Like when I had no idea what it was. Like Blood just gave a description. I remember we're doing the appointment. It's like, yeah, I looked up a video of it. I was like, okay, this kind of looks cool. And that presentation, I felt, oh, this is probably going to be a pretty cool game. I like the concepts. They basically just showed the part trying to cross a field of rats with like the little torches that were safe spots, and then you'd come across like those armored guards like further ahead who were like, ooh, who's out there? And there's like one contraption where you had to have one of the kids do something to like make a path forward. And I felt it was both like the dialogue, the story, the concept that there was kids trying to do this, so like a lot of things you expect, they're not going to do that. Everything, it felt like it had come together pretty well. They kept talking like it was so incomplete and still rough, and when I was saying, this doesn't look what are you talking about? This actually looks pretty good.
Yeah.
It felt good. And it's coming out sometime later. I'm like, so now it's out this year. I'm like, hearing like Hubert talking about I'm like, it turned out pretty well.
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty good to hear. Yeah.
That is something I want to emphasize, and something I was not expecting is just like, yeah, this game is very visually impressive. The environments, the lighting, like her like intricate braids in her hair, like everything looks so good. And there's just this nice lived-in quality to the world. I love going into a house or going into a church that has been affected by all these rats, and it's like, okay, yeah, like things are displaced in a very particular way. Like they thought about this, where it's like, okay, if this event happened, how would this place look? And I love that. There's just such attention and care placed to everything. And the last thing that I want to say about stealth, and like, man, I really hope more people do this, because I really like stealth. But I hate it when it's like, okay, they just looked at your direction and it's instantly over. You got to go back to that checkpoint. In A Plague Tale: Innocence, they have levels to it, so where it's like you'll get seen and they'll start coming after you, but it's not like you fail or you instantly die.
Right.
Like if you're slowly going into the field and you're like going into a bush or something, if you just get seen on that last step, you can go into the bush, go a little bit deeper, and you're okay. And it's like, okay, I still had that tension of they saw me. I still feel scared and it's dangerous, but it's not like this very arbitrary binary, like, oh no, you got seen, man, it's over. And that's something I didn't like about some of those sections in Days Gone, where it's like, okay, you can't hurt them no matter what you do, and if you get seen, you gotta do it again. So yeah. Just an interesting side-by-side comparison. Brandon, this game, there are several like Brandon passionate, overflowing games. I would say Dragon Quest Builders, one of them.
Ooh, 2 months out.
I would say
2
Animal
months out.
Crossing is one of them. But the other one, the third one that you've actually been able to really enjoy as you're waiting for Dragon Quest Builders 2 and Animal Crossing is Dreams.
Yeah.
The Dreams Early Access. And I've poked around at Dreams a little bit, but I've just been playing levels. You've been making stuff.
Yeah.
What has that process been like?
It's great. I think that's actually I have some critiques, and now's the time to critique it because it's an early access, but the actual building of stuff is really great, and I think one of the things that impresses me about this, two main things. One is just general freedom. Like, you can place something in an environment anywhere you want. Like, you can take two objects and you can mash them together. And a lot of games are very restrictive in that way. As much as I love Disney Infinity, it was very much like on a grid. You can like turn that grid on and off if you want. Like, so I was building a house and I'm like, no, I want that grid on because I want it to be click, click, this wall's here, click, click, this wall's here. If I'm turning something, I want it to be at a 90-degree angle. But you can also just turn that off and then use the move controllers or the 6-axis or like all sorts of things to move things objects around. And so like once I actually got used to moving around in that environment and like getting used to like zooming in on objects and being able to manipulate space, there was definitely like a click moment that happened after the tutorials. And I was kind of scared because when I first booted up the tutorials, there's not a ton. Like it only would take you a little over 2 hours like to get through all of those. But what they do a good job of is
a little over 2 hours.
Yeah.
That's a long time.
It's well, it's a big
Yeah.
Comparatively, it's a big game.
Right.
If this was like a platformer,
Sure.
2-hour tutorial at the beginning of the experience would be rough. But and they're very clearly labeled on not only what they cover but difficulty, and some teach one thing but are broken up into different chapters. But there's a lot going on in this game to understand. And I felt that when I finally finished the tutorials, I was like, it seems like there's so much more to this game than they've actually explained. But they explain enough in those tutorials to make you understand at least where to find the answer for what you're looking for. Like, I am having a hard time with character animation. I think that's like the biggest, scariest thing that I'm trying to build right now. I'm like trying to make like this, like basically like Fox McCloud, but like an archer, like Robin Hood from the Disney film. I'm trying to like create that. So he's got like big ears and fur, and now the scary thing I'm going to get into is like the cape. So I'm actually have like clothing that moves but doesn't like I don't have like the arms like going through the objects. And I don't necessarily know all of the intricacies about like how to animate things, but I know where to find them. Like I know I can easily, manipulate the object so I can open up the correct menu and go to the correct page and know, like, you can very clearly label, look at things. I know what that's going to do. It's fun when you're animating things, you can actually like hit a play button. That's always the right thumbstick, I think, that the character will start moving and animating. So if you're like messing with the jump animation, you don't have to like leave the window, go into the thing, start jumping around and go, no, that's not quite right. You can just hit play and it'll start jumping if you're like moused over, basically, or like the cursor's over it. And so I think that's something that a lot of building games, it was very difficult to do in the past, where like I'd get to a point where I'm like, okay, I can just generally construct stuff, but clearly there's this huge canyon that I haven't like leapt over,
right,
to where that's where all these other players are, all these other people that are like, either I put in the time to understand how these systems work, or I'm just, I just code games, I just animate games anyway, so like these systems just make sense to me.
It was interesting because we did the group stream with Dreams, and I definitely saw like kind of this connective tissue between things where I'm like, yeah, these all came from the same tool set. I mean, there were exceptions to that. Some stuff did look crazy, but a lot of what we played, I was like, I see where this is coming from. And then playing it like a few weeks later, I was like, oh, like how did you make this look like this? Like, how did you do this? And there's clearly been this huge jump. But you've been live streaming this process, right?
Yes.
So I don't know how you do that, because like the way that you and Kyle have described Dreams is that it's intense. It's an intensive learning process.
Yeah.
And like I can't imagine trying to have a conversation with chat and like it's tough, I think, sometimes, especially when you're streaming and you feel like you have to do it constantly, trying to explain where your head is at while also learning, while also just like dealing with the inherent like self-conscious issues of like, is this entertaining? Like, is this like all
right.
of that? It's a whole bag of things.
Yeah.
And so what has that process been like for you?
It's actually pretty great with chat, because I think one of the coolest things about Dreams is how you interact with other players in that game in terms of like sharing assets and like, for example, I wanted to make one character first person, and I was like, yeah, how do I do that? Because if you bring in like the default character, it like puts the camera at a specific distance, and I'm like, how do I move that? Actually, I'm not sure. And so not only can there's a couple of champs. Shout out to Dan from Umbrella on Twitch. Like, there are a couple of people that have been doing a lot in Dreams, and so I always try to have one question prepared right at the top of the stream where I'm like, okay, how do I do this? And they're like, so I'm not like constantly asking questions throughout the stream, and then inevitably there'll be one person that like I don't know if they are a frequent passerby of twitch.tv/easyallies, but they will jump in and be like, hey, I made a level, play my level, and it's like, oh, of course, like I might not, if it's this big 2-hour epic, I'm not necessarily going to promise to go through the whole thing, but it's fun to have members of our community also building things, and that can be a full level, that can be a piece of music, that can be just a model. Like one person showed off something actually in the last community showcase that we did. It was just this big dragon head.
Nice.
So I saw somebody tweet out today that our buddy Chris Leroux does our graphics, that he was working on Crash Bandicoot stuff.
Cool.
And so he made like one of like the tiki heads, and it looked amazing. And so it's neat to know like I can actually go. I mean, they have to publish it first, but like it's cool that I can go find that. And when I asked like, how do you change this character into first person? And someone's like, literally just search first person and you'll find it. Like somebody made that's like just the default model that's already rigged. And then you can just bring that into your game.
That's awesome.
And it's fun. Like one of the final tutorials is great because it's not like really specifically structured. It's like, it's not the normal narrator voice guy. It's like actually one of the devs. And he's like, this is a world that I built. He's like, I'm going to show you some things and how it's working in here. But what you can do even further than that is like find something in the environment and crack it open and see what's going on.
Yeah.
And a lot of times devs say that in games like this. Infinity tried to do that where they built these like templates where you could look at it, but it was still like very, very tricky to see specifically how this was working. And there's just something about the inputs and outputs, something about how all of those, they're called gadgets, like the really specific AI and programming stuff behind the under the hood, how that's organized. I am nowhere even close. It's probably gonna take me like years to actually like get really, really good at this to where I can like, it might take a long time to do this, but I know how to do it. But it seems plausible. Like I'm at a point where when I make those little tiny victories, they're really fun to do. And it's just, I can't say enough about just the freedom of visualizing something and then being like, oh, I'm gonna put that in there. Like I'm building one thing that's like a little mountain house, and I'm like, oh, I'm having a mountain in the background, and it's like, well, I don't have time to model that mountain right now.
Right.
But let me just like take a pyramid, make it really big, move it over there. Okay, cool. And then like it's interesting to kind of study depth and really see what you need. Because like Damiani, you love cracking open. There was that one Nintendo 64 engine, in browser thing where you can just like look around all these environments. And it's always fun to me to see like where the facade ended, like where the developers stopped making stuff, because they're like, you're never going to get over there. You're never going to see it. And so it's neat to actually be building a world and think like, oh, I've maxed out on space, but maybe I can get creative here and actually start removing some elements that aren't like completely necessary.
Sure. I think about something like Mario Maker, which obviously allows for a ton of creativity.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like it's still playing by the rules of Mario.
You're still making platforms.
To some degree. Whereas with Dreams, like the whole point is how wide it can get.
Yeah.
And does that ever mess with kind of your creative planning, where you're like, well, okay, I wanted to do this, but then I saw that this was possible, and I figured out this, and so now I'm going to go in this direction. And then is it hard to stay focused?
No, it's just hard to know like where my limits stop. Like the one, like I want to have one game that's like my main game that I want to build everything from the ground up. That's what I'm like trying to make this protagonist for. And he's a little guy with a bow and arrow. And so I'm thinking like, okay, do I want to just just a square button shoots a arrow, or do I want to go like Horizon with this, where like left trigger pulls the arrow back and then right trigger like actually shoots it, I think it's like left trigger would bring up the bow, right trigger pulls the arrow, releasing right trigger shoots it.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, that sounds kind of tricky. Like I have no idea. Like, am I just going to be creating physics on an object that just throws this thing out into the world? And then if it just happens to hit something, then that'll identify, oh, if that enters this space, do damage and, decrease health. And like,
this sounds like a job.
How much do I want to hurt myself? Yeah. It's like, how simple do I want to make it? So it's not a matter of like, I feel limited or I'm discovering these things I didn't know. I think I have a good idea of what you can do in Dreams. It's just like, how far do I want to take that? Like, how many promises do I want to make on these streams of what I'm going to do?
Yeah.
When I'm not really 100% sure how long it'll take to do it.
When I'm in the mindset of like, just I want to just play things. I just want to see like the craziest, best stuff people can make.
Yeah.
Which is how I approach these games. It's less fun to see like the works in progress. Not that there's any. I'm against them or anything. It's just I'm not creating it, so I'm not getting as much out of it. And so I'm wondering, from your perspective, somebody who's actually creating, is it more fun to see the works in progress than like the super polished stuff?
That is my number one issue with Dreams. That's like the one thing before we moved on to another topic that I wanted to bring up. And I think it's like one of the biggest, I know a lot of people are like, early access, what is it going to have at launch? Media Molecule actually put barely anything into this game. I mean, obviously there's a ton of systems, so people are creating their own stuff. But even just like, they have one menu that's like Media Molecule stuff, and there's like 20 things in it. And then like when I would demo the games, they would show these these platforms that they had built, and specifically there's like a jazz musician that's in some like adventure type game thing that they showed off. None of that is in there. So when the game actually launches, they're going to put all of their own story content in it. And so they're really just kind of like letting the lunatics run the asylum here and letting everybody create their own stuff. And which is smart for early access. It's like understand the tools, and then when we dump all this other cool stuff on top of you, you'll know what to do with it. And then it'll also, when people finally decide, okay, this is worth $60, I'll check it out because it's been around for a while. Look at everything that they've been building during early access. Look at all the stuff that's in there. It is organized horribly. I think I actually talked this game up a little too well before it came out because from my limited understanding of playing it and seeing it at events and not being in the beta period, because I completely missed that, I thought they were going to organize this a little bit better. Case in point, people are making like Dexter's Laboratory, people are making Metal Gear Solid, people are making Super Mario Brothers. Put that all in one area. It's like have this something that if they don't label it themselves, Media Molecule comes in and labels it. This is a parody. Like this is somebody's making Crash Bandicoot, and if you want that, there should be a place you can go that's just that. That I'm just going to throw those things at you. There should be a way I can filter. Like I don't want, like you were saying, I don't want work in progress. Like, I don't want to see something that you made. There's one level somebody's making. They've published like 4 trailers for it. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, it's like teaser trailer from my Dreams level. Like, stop. There was one, like I think the first day I played Dreams, I jumped into a level called like Lovecraftian horror. And I was like, yes, into my veins right now. Let's do this. Yeah. And it was like on a street corner. There was like a cop car and a building. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I go over to the building and click on the building and it's like, coming soon. I'm like, stop it. And so that's fine if you want to do that. But like, then have that be a whole section of like coming soon. Like if you want to see teases of upcoming projects, because when I jump in to play stuff, it's just like the fire hose. It's just kind of like, okay, there's a lot of stuff going on here. And you can filter by names, but it's like, I think they should be a little wiser in terms of what they expect and know their audience is naturally going to gravitate toward, and then let me spend time in that area. But it's early access, so. But that's like my, as far as like, because I'm not just playing. I'm not just building stuff. I am playing, and actually, according to Dreams, I play more than I build. But when I go back and forth between those things, that's like when I'm building stuff. It's like this seems just perfect. Like this seems like you've put a lot of work in here. It's gonna take me a long time to understand it. When I go playing stuff, it's like this clearly could be done better.
During the group stream, something that I didn't think of for some reason, but I'm even more excited to see, like, once this thing gets out of early access and once a sufficient amount of time has passed, is it was like, oh man, like I can type just random things and I don't know what's going to pop up. Like that's the kind of game this is, where you're free to make anything. Like I could have a random thought. I'm like, I wonder if this is in here, and just go. Yeah. And I think that could be really fun for the longevity of the game. Is that flexibility and just all the different genres and parodies and whatever it is. I think that's cool. And not that you didn't have that in Little Big Planet, but this seems like that taken to an even further extreme.
It's really tough. I try not to compare too many games to this because this is crazy. What they've built, this is like the kind of thing where you have a developer that this is all they're doing. There's no Media Molecule side project right now. Like it is all the cooks are in this kitchen. And for anyone that's curious, like the difference between the content available from 1 week to 2 weeks to 3 weeks to 4 weeks has been substantial. You can clearly see, whoa, like people are building some really cool stuff. And that's the thing is like I wish there was some place I could go to that's like the old Nintendo seal of approval that like editors picks, like one, because that's kind of reminds me of the mobile games. Like I like to buy mobile games a lot.
Top rated is though on some level. Yeah.
But I go to the Apple Store a lot on my iPhone to buy mobile games, and it's just nice to jump in there. I found out that Battleheart, which was a mobile game I really liked, had a sequel, and I found that out because Apple was like, "Remember Battleheart? Like you bought this. Look at this. We got prominent placing in the store." And I was like, "Oh, cool!" So I actually picked that up a couple days ago, and so I'm looking for that. It would be nice if for someone like you, especially somebody new coming into Dreams, I would hate for someone to spend like $60 and then jump in and the first level they play just sucks, And so they're like, I would love if there's some place you go where they're like, this start here. This is the cream of the crop. These are like the highest level builders that we have. Everything just kind of gets jumbled together right now. And maybe I don't necessarily understand how those menus work. It's just everything seems kind of bare bones.
Definitely.
But nitpick.
Do you have a favorite level so far? you've
boy,
played?
I'm not. I probably do. I'm not. I'm
Blanking?
ill-equipped.
Sure.
Ill-equipped for that response. I mean, just in general, I love stuff that's surprising. I like things. I encourage anyone who's building stuff in Dreams, please make your level short because I want to try a lot of stuff. You know, and I some of these projects, these coming soons, I can tell like, oh boy, like this person wants to make like Skyrim, and it's like that's exciting. Maybe release it in different chapters just so I can take a little chunk at once.
I think that's good advice.
And so one of my favorites right off the bat was I hopped in a Jeep and drove, and it was 5 minutes, and I did a lot of crazy things in those 5 minutes, and I'm done. You know, and like I'll always have fond memories of that.
So we're at the point of the show now where we're going to do Caught in the Frame Trap, and the rules are going to be a little bit different this time. The demons of the Frame Trap realm have decided we're going to put our differences aside because we're all going to come together for E3.
Oh.
And so you guys will be doing this game together. You will not be against each other. You will be trying to help each other out to try to do the game as best as you possibly can.
Okay.
And because it's E3 time, I think the next episode we're going to go harder on E3 than we're going this episode. But I want to see how well you remember last year's E3.
Oh no.
And you can collectively pool your knowledge for this.
Yeah, you're really good at this. Don't shake your head. You're good at this, Damiani.
I've picked 3 different companies, and the reason I picked these 3 companies because if I pick Microsoft, like they just show so much, like they have those moments where it's like, okay, well, of course you're not gonna remember everything. So I've picked 3 companies, and I want to see how many things you can remember that they showed off last year. And you, like I said, work together as best you can. The first company here is Square Enix. What did Square Enix show off during their pre-recorded conference last year? Which games?
Well, they showed off Final Fantasy XIV with the Monster Hunter event.
They did. I love that is the first thing that you brought up.
Forget that.
Yes.
They showed off Platinum's new game. It has Babel in the name. I forget the full title.
Can Brandon help you out here with the full title?
Oh, with the full title.
You're on the right track.
Yeah.
You're very close.
That was Ghost Babel.
No, it's not. Ghost Babel.
No, you're totally right. No,
they showed off.
I'm worthless.
Just Cause 4.
They did. Babylon's Fall was that. I'll give it to you. Yeah.
I was possessive. I couldn't think of the word. I was like, I have no idea what the second word is. They showed off Kingdom Hearts 3.
They did, yes.
There's another trailer because they had multiple trailers for that. How many do we have to get?
As many as you can.
Yeah, as many as you
sorry,
can. Yeah, I'm
blanked.
just poking your brain, really.
Dragon Quest stuff, Jones.
Did they show Builders 2?
They did not show
I don't
Builders
think
2.
they did. Show Builders 2, no
You're-
Avengers. That was tuned
You're
out.
on the right track.
Jones, another Dragon Quest.
Oh, Dragon Quest 11. Of course.
Yes.
There
You guys are doing pretty good with Square
And that
Enix.
was close to launch? No. Last D3?
When did Dragon Quest 11 launch? Was it September or October? I think it was September.
Yeah, I just remember it being kind of like this big, like, if you weren't sold by now, here's this big blowout trailer.
Yeah.
Was there any Tomb Raider there? No, I forget.
No.
You sure?
I don't think so.
I think there was Tomb Raider.
I love how like you're questioning him. That's great.
I think it was because there was the Become the Tomb Raider thing was still going on at that point, right? So we saw it at Judges Week, so it was definitely had to be in that.
Oh,
press
sure. Well,
conference.
now I'm thinking about Judges.
I think-
You know what's
'cause
funny?
they
That
showed off a
Judges Week
trailer. Yeah,
appointment
they
sticks
did.
out more than that press conference.
They showed off a trailer because they showed off the
Yeah.
same part.
So you're gonna go with Tomb Raider?
Yeah.
Okay, you
What's
guys
it
are doing
called?
really
What's
good.
the subtitle that one.
The last one was not Rise, but Shadow of the
Shadow
Tomb
of the
Raider.
Tomb Raider. There you go.
There you go. Nice job. Brandon's on the board.
Did they show off?
You actually only have 4 things left, I believe.
Wow.
They didn't show off Oninaki yet, I believe, right? That was too soon.
I don't have that written down.
Yeah, that was at something else that they showed that off. Trying to think if they showed off.
One of these is not super fair, to be honest. The other 3 are.
Was any of them mobile stuff? Did they show off any mobile stuff? I'm trying to remember. Oh, was Brave Exvius showed off for that?
Don't have that written down. I can give you a hint that I think is vague enough. It is an infamous game. It is a game that will be remembered not for its quality.
The legendary stream where they it became a meme. I know the game. Bird Mask.
Bird Mask. Oh
And
man,
it was like live action. Remember they fought, and you were like, "What is this?"
Quiet Man, of course.
Yep.
Birdman. I don't remember Birdman. Wow.
Or Beak Mask, whatever it was. Yeah, that was a disaster. Wasn't there also one other?
That was a
weird thing
crazy,
like
crazy
that?
trailer.
One of the episodic things, right? Jones.
Damiani. You're supposed to help each other.
Life is
Strange. Okay.
was that not there?
You're
Life is Strange too?
You're
Wasn't it?
kind of.
Oh no, it was Friday the 13th. Man, that was so good. It was Captain Underpants. What's his name? Captain Spirit.
There you go. Captain Spirit. Yeah.
Isn't there a Captain Underpants? I think that's like a kid show or something.
There's a Captain Underpants series of books.
Oh.
I think they made a movie as well. I read the Captain Underpants books. As a kid.
So we got 2 more or 1 more?
Sounds like one and a
You got
half.
2 more. You got 2 more. I don't really love these, so I'll just give them to you and we can move on.
Okay,
they
sure.
showed Nier Automata. I think it was like a Game of the Year
Oh,
edition.
yeah.
So like
Become
whatever.
as gods edition. or
They
something,
also
whatever.
showed Octopath Traveler according to these notes.
Oh yeah, I think that.
It
I
wasn't
think
out yet.
I think it had come out,
It was
and it
one
was
more
just like,
month
remember
away.
everybody,
Yeah.
this is out.
I was like, there was some of like
That one is
that caliber came. And
No, totally.
that
It's
makes
pretty
sense.
tricky. The next one I've got here is Electronic Arts. What did Electronic
I can
Arts
help you
Did they
with
actually
this.
show any games?
I can help you with this.
Did they show any games?
I'm gonna rattle this off. I can help you with
Did
this.
they show any games?
They did.
Okay.
Anthem.
Yes.
That Command and
biggest
Conquer
one.
mobile game.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
Um,
The letdowns.
Hold on 1 second. Okay, go ahead. The Command and Conquer mobile game. I thought you guys might have forgotten that one, and so yeah, right at the gate.
Battlefield.
Battlefield.
Yep.
Madden, FIFA.
Don't
usual.
think they.
Was that the one? Didn't they?
They did a-
Didn't the
They
two?
did,
Didn't
they
the two
did.
FIFA guys come out? Was that last year? Where they had
They
the
did
two?
FIFA.
FIFA.
And they did Madden.
Okay, they did,
Brandon is
okay.
correct.
They teased Fallen Order, but they didn't show it. But they had
Oh,
that
yeah, the
weird,
se-
they had the
I'm-
weird
I'm-
audience
I'm
moment.
including like any kind of like prominent reference, and so I have Fallen
Yeah.
Order written down.
Yeah.
And
That's
from
I'll
the
give it to
chairs.
you.
They went to the crowd for that one.
I'd be disappointed if you didn't bring that one up. So
Was-
you guys have exceeded expectations on this.
It was right. It came out before.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And
I won't forget about that.
Dragon Age was Game Awards.
Yep, that's
Yeah,
right.
that was later.
I was sitting at this event. I was sitting.
were no-
Unravel 2.
Yeah, there you
you
go.
go.
I was gonna say Shadow Drop.
There was no like.
The Sims was
plans.
playable, but I don't know if they did any Sims thing in the actual presentation.
Think there's something along the lines of Unravel 2 that I've struggled remembering the name of, but was there and made an impression.
Sea of Solitude.
Yes.
What'd you say?
Sea of Solitude.
Okay, Sea of Solitude.
Well done.
Was what's his face's game there? Brothers.
No, that was the year before.
Yeah. Well, was there a follow? Oh no, that was it. That was.
Was there any
Um,
Plants vs Zombies things?
I don't think there
No,
was. That's so surprising.
Okay. Yes. The only other things I have written down. There's 2 other sports games, and then there's another one that was
And
coming from a rough
No.
place.
Did more Battlefront 2 DLC?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh,
And then the other 2 are NBA Live 19 and
Yeah.
oh no, never mind. I think it was only one more. I thought it was NHL, but I don't think they showed NHL.
NBA.
So yeah, it was NBA was the last
Okay.
one. All right, last one. This one has more I think than the other 2. Maybe not. Bethesda.
Rage 2.
Yes. Opened with Rage 2.
Starfield.
Yep.
Elder Scrolls 6.
Yep. Brandon
Fallout 76.
coming alive. Fallout 76. Yep.
Elder Scrolls Legends.
Yep.
Elder Scrolls Online.
Bethesda man over here. I think Papa Jones.
I hated that press conference. Yeah, they had a lot of weird teams come out that were like super excited about.
You can say it out loud. You're like trying to give it to Jones.
I
love it. Yeah.
Jones going for the
Doom
the-
Eternal.
Doom. Yep.
The sweep here. What else did?
Blades.
Yep.
The mobile game.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let's see. I believe you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 left.
Wow.
Devo within 3, not.
Why? Why? Why?
Wow, they got a lot
Did they
going
talk
on.
about any more Any other like other mobile stuff that we're just forgetting, or something stuff?
I
just
don't think.
expansions
Oh, there
to
is
older
one
games?
mobile thing that you're
Yeah.
forgetting that has been out for a while.
The Fallout mobile game.
Yes.
I can't remember
Yeah,
the name of it.
yeah.
What is the name
Shelter.
of it? Yes,
Shelter, yeah.
Shelter. There
It was
you go.
coming to Switch,
was like-
right? Was
Yeah.
the Switch
Yeah,
announcement?
that was it. Yeah, it's like I thought there was something like that.
There's other ongoing things here that you could bring up. Multiplayer,
Wait,
shooter.
Was it-
What was that?
was it the Quake thing?
What is the name of that game?
Quake Champions?
Quake Champions. There you go.
Nice.
There's one that hasn't come out yet that you guys haven't brought up that
Huh.
is connected to a game that came out last year.
Was
So many things were announced during this
Say
press
these-
conference.
was there a VR related thing?
There was, and that's another.
Oh, Dishonored had a big. Oh, not Dishonored. Prey.
Yep.
Had a bunch of.
There
Had
you
two
go.
fun expansions. They had the Moon one, and they
The
had
VR thing, I think.
Yeah, and there was one where you were like taking over objects. And yeah, they did show a lot of things. I think I'm tapped.
Yeah.
There's one. So Brandon, I don't know if you'll remember. I reviewed this game last year.
Right.
And they're doing a new thing with it, continuing the story.
Oh, Youngblood.
Yeah, there you
Yeah,
go.
Oh,
There you go.
okay. Yeah.
And then also
Jesus.
there's the Wolfenstein VR Cyberpilot.
Right.
Yeah. You know, you guys did pretty all right, I think.
It's so funny with E3 because some things seem like that got announced more recently than that, and some
Yeah.
things seem like it was around forever by that point.
There were smaller things that I was not expecting you guys to get. Like Remembering Blades, I thought was really good. Remembering Command & Conquer Rivals was really good. Even just like remembering, even though you didn't get the title right, Babylon's Fall, that was one I was expecting to maybe slip through the cracks. And so I think you guys did a good job. I think you have earned the right to break out of this frame trap collectively. But before we do that, I want to give you a chance to think about it. We're going to talk about our sponsors, and then
Okay.
we'll have your glorious co-op breakout.
Okay.
Our sponsors, these wonderful people supporting this show, the first one is Greg the Dark Knight Kettering. Thank you, Greg. Next, we have Zoteg, who, again, like very relevant for this episode. Do you play Final Fantasy XIV? Are you on the Crystal Data Center? Search at Zoteg, that is XOTIG, on Twitter for a link to an EZA Crystal Discord server. Thank you, Zoteg. After that, we have JoJo's Dent Co. Thank you, JoJo. And next we have Accounts Payable, who, once again, giving us a free shout-out for anything. So either of you, fine gentlemen, if you would like to shout out anything, it could be a concept. We shouted out education before on this
Yeah.
podcast. So it can be anything you want.
Individually,
Individually, whichever one of you does it first,
Barry on HBO.
that's a good shout-out.
Yeah,
That's a
2
good
seasons.
shout-out.
2
Oh,
seasons.
we go to television, and yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah, if a certain show left a bad taste in your mouth, Breaking Bad.
Breaking Bad.
Go back.
Yep. Thank you, Accounts Payable. Next, we have Gift of Heaven. Gift of Heaven is a free 3DS RPG which strives to be as funny as Earthbound, efficient as Chrono Trigger, and epic as Final Fantasy VI. Gift of Heaven quadruples every data limit of RPG Maker FES, using passwords to unite 4 game files as one bold explosion. OM Hochstelter is cooking the rip-roaring, full-blast, Tolkien, Potter, Gump combo meal you deserve to eat, and them Hochstelters don't skimp on the shrimp. Gift of Heaven's 43-minute promotional short film, Symphonia Anathema, is now available on the official Gift of Heaven YouTube channel. Download the prologue August 7th via the RPG Maker FES 3DS app, currently at 503 hours of development time, and the prologue is 85% finished.
Nice.
The dedication. Our final regular sponsor is Blue. Thank you, Blue. And now it is time for the mega sponsor, Heroic Replicas. The fine folks at Heroic Replicas design and fabricate true to form, high-quality replicas and props. From legendary gear to keepsakes or all-metal creations, Heroic Replicas can make something special for you. Through the month of May, Heroic Replicas is auctioning off 4 unique items, one each week, with proceeds going directly to fund future months of sponsorship of Easy Allies. This week, The Chris sword.
Wait,
Sword.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Do you know what the Chris sword is?
That's a good question, Brandon.
The Chris sword. C-R-I-S sword. One word. Chris sword.
C-R-I-S-S. Oh, yeah, you're right.
W-O-R-D,
You're right.
yeah.
You're right. Never mind.
Chris
I
sword.
feel like I know swords more by how they look than their names.
The Chris sword. You've never heard of the Chris sword? Well, excuse me, princess. The Chris sword is the magical short sword belonging to Link from the Legend of Zelda animated series.
It's a type of blade. Then that's the name of the type of blade. It's not the proper noun name.
Correcting our mega sponsor.
Right? No, I'm asking.
I don't
the
know.
question.
I don't know. I have no idea.
Isn't it like?
Not the hilt, but what's the thing that sticks out to the side? It's like red crystal. It's like gold. It's like a little gold.
Okay.
With a little red on the inside, and it's just a shorter sword. It's not very long.
Okay.
Looks like a big dagger almost.
Yeah, like a rapier, like a two-handed, like claymore. Like those are the names of the sword. Like that's right. I'm asking. Actually.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
Mega sponsor, send us a reply, please.
Yes, please. Please let
Damiani
us
wants
know.
more information.
Yes.
This replica features a cast resin hilt, a stainless steel blade, and holographic accents. This design is retiring after the auction, making this replica the last of its kind. Yep. Bidding on the Chris sword starts at $1, and the auction ends Tuesday, May 28th. However, because this is a bi-weekly show, I'm also going to be promoting the next auction that's coming up after that, which will be from the underworld of Tyria and the Hall of Monuments comes an ominous, intimidating greatsword. From Guild Wars and Guild Wars 2, the Fellblade is being put up for auction. This massive steel replica features a leather handle wrap and a crude black onyx finish. It's over 4 feet long and weighs over 15 pounds. Bidding starts at $1, and the auction ends on Tuesday, June 4th. If you missed last week's auction, the Mermaid's Pendant, you can learn more by following @Heroic Replicas on Twitter, and don't forget to retweet the auction link if you'd like to help support Heroic Replicas and Easy Allies. If you want to help support Heroic... Oh, no, I'm sorry. For some reason, I had that written twice. But yes, follow them on Twitter @Heroic Replicas. Thank you so much to all of our wonderful sponsors. And back to the regular part of the show, there's something that we haven't talked about yet, like officially, publicly at Easy Allies, that I'm excited to talk about, and that is Detective Pikachu, which I've seen and Damiani has seen. I don't think you've seen it yet, Brandon, but you're intending to.
Oh yes, definitely.
Okay. So I don't want to spoil it for you, but I actually think there's a lot to talk about that isn't really spoilery, or at least like plot spoilery, I guess I should say. So Damiani, what is your quick elevator pitch for Detective Pikachu? The elevator pitch was a bad way to describe that. What is your like quick impression of Detective Pikachu after seeing it?
I really like the world in this. I liked what they showed. I liked how it was a slightly different viewpoint of the world of Pokemon.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I got so distracted.
You caught what you forgot to do?
Yes,
Okay.
I got so caught up in the Chris sword, like, controversy that I forgot you guys need to break out of the frame trap.
Started thinking about Squirtle, and you just
Yeah. I just lost my mind. Well, I've forgotten the breakout several times because I do it different ways. Where
I felt
sometimes
uncomfortable. I felt we're still.
We're still
in it.
here. We're still here. Yeah. We can't forget it, especially since it's a co-op one. Have you guys come out with a way to break out of this frame trap?
Do you have an idea?
It sounds like you have one.
Yes.
Okay, what is it?
To celebrate the 2 new classes, why don't you hit me with the gunblade while I'm dancing?
Okay.
Brandon, this is maybe one of the best ideas we've ever had on this show.
Ready?
All right, I'm going to lock it up, right?
Okay. There you go.
Brandon, that image is going to get saved forever, and it's a beautiful image. Okay, Detective Pikachu for real this time. Damiani, you were saying you really liked the world.
Yeah, basically seeing how the Pokemon and humans like living together in this rhyme city. Essentially, I just liked the world building in it, and I really appreciated the effort that went into that. And I really liked how, for the most part, they kept it a very simple story, so that you could focus on the relationship between Tim was the main character's name, and his Detective Pikachu, Ryan Reynolds Pikachu, essentially. Yeah. And I really like that about it.
So you talk about you appreciated the world building, you appreciated the simplicity. Rhyme City is this place where humans and Pokemon are living together and peacefully. And so what about that do you think was sold well? What made that concept work?
Seeing the Pokemon out and about, interacting in the world, it's kind of also the premise of the upcoming Sword and Shield. It's like, hey, Pokemon are out and about, and they work with you to make this a prosperous, and it's early in the movie. They explain that one of the unique things about Rhyme City is that, yes, the Pokemon are out and about and work with it to make it one of the most unique places on the planet. Mm-hmm. They obviously reference other famous places in the Pokemon universe, but they were trying to do something unique and different here. And I kind of like that because as much as I felt I would really enjoy a traditional Pokemon story about following a trainer along on their adventures, I've already seen that in the anime. I've already seen that in the games. I've already seen that story told. This was telling a different type of story. Yes, there's the Detective Pikachu game. I get they're very like identical stories, but I never played that game. So this being my first experience to that narrative, I really liked it. So props to the video game. The video game's also like the same story, but I really like that take on the Pokemon universe.
So you really like the concept and how they sold it. A big point of discussion for people, maybe the most overwhelming point of discussion, is how the Pokemon look, because it is a different take. Some people think they look creepy in their CGI form. How did it land for you?
It was definitely on a case-by-case basis, but in general, I felt despite this feeling like a big blockbuster release, I don't think the budget afforded them the best quality CG. One of the opening sequences with Pokemon, it's more of a rural town, Jones. Mm-hmm. They show like the Pokemon just like fly. Was it Pidgeotos or whatever? Or I forget which ones were flying at the very beginning. They're just like flying through like the field over like a farmhouse or something, and they immediately they looked wrong. Like they didn't fit into the world quite right. Like the CG stood out too much. I'm like, so at that moment I had to tell my brain, hey, this is like one of the easiest shots composition wise to make them blend in. It didn't really do it well. So just accept that going forward it's gonna be that caliber. And it went down easier that way. But consistently there were moments where things it could have used a little bit more TLC, basically, to massage it, make it feel a little bit more natural and organic, how they looked. It was a kind of a stark contrast at points, seeing like a gritty city, and then some of the Pokemon, their designs by nature looked a little rough. Like I feel like maybe Psyduck might be one of the ones that like is polarizing to people.
Man, I really like Psyduck in this movie.
I liked it too, and I saw a lot of people were like, it looks so creepy, it looks so wrong, and I'm like, oh, okay. Whereas, to me, I love, like, Pikachu was, like, hard to mess up. But even Pikachu, some people think Pikachu looks wrong and looks too creepy.
I think Pikachu
They don't like
adorable.
The fur. They hate the fur. It's like, oh, yeah.
People, how a Pokemon looks, it could be debated endlessly.
Oh, yeah.
Like, with maybe very few exceptions.
I can speak to this a little bit because I have seen the trailer and I've seen like a clip or two online. But like one thing that as someone who's just discovering Pokemon more and more every day, every week, every year, I think there is something inherent to me. I'm not surprised people's reactions. Like with CG in any movie, with Game of Thrones, it's like one scene's like, oh my god, and the other scene's like, oh, there went that budget. But I think to me, from just now exploring Pokemon, there is always a sense of like, with all of Pokemon. It's like when you see something evolve, it's like, what the heck is this going to turn into? Like, with the first Pokemon you find in every game, it's like, like you go out into the world and it like jumps out at you. So there always kind of was this shocking, like, not that they're monstrous, but just bizarre. Like that, like I kind of want, the more bizarre, the better. Like I want to see like how strange we can take some of these designs and evolutions. And so it's interesting to me that a lot of these things are being realized and people are like, that looks, super strange. And it's like, well, they kind of always were super strange.
Right.
So I would not be surprised
Brandon,
that like
that is exactly where I'm coming
their
from.
real world they should stand out.
Yes.
They should, if you were at like a gas station and you saw like, Bulbasaur across the street, you wouldn't be like, sure. You'd be like, what the heck is that thing?
These are fantastic, weird, fascinating creatures. Like if I saw Mr. Mime in real life, I wouldn't want to be like, oh, that's adorable. I would want to be creeped out because he's creepy. So something that I want to say that was really fun throughout the whole movie for me was Ryan Reynolds' performance. And what's interesting about Ryan Reynolds' performance in this movie is he's just being Ryan Reynolds. He's just doing the Ryan Reynolds thing, but he does it just like he just has this quick wit about him that I found it legitimately funny. There were several moments throughout the movie where I was like, that was really clever, and you delivered that super well. And I think it works because you think about Pikachu, and Pikachu is just this immediately like lovable, like kind of heartwarming character. And I think there's something about Ryan Reynolds that's kind of like lovable and heartwarming as well. And so it was interesting, like him doing his thing blended perfectly with kind of like the archetype that I view Pikachu under. And I thought that was really good. And I thought Justice Smith did a really good job as Tim. And it was because both of them, I think, gave good performances. It was fun to see them interact. I didn't think all the actors were quite on the same level. It was definitely like a range of performances for me. And my biggest criticism with the movie, and Damiani, to go back to your world building thing, I really loved the first half of the movie where it was just, okay, we're learning more about the city. We're learning more about these characters. We're learning more about like why they can talk to each other. Like all that stuff was fascinating. And when they dug into that and you just kind of got to like see how all of this works, it was awesome. The movie definitely hits a point where it's like, all right, it's plot time. It's time to deal with the villain. It's time for the twist to come. When it got into that very like typical story structure, it like was not memorable to me. It just wasn't as fun. Some of the things that they did, it felt like they did them to be twisty rather than those things being properly built up or interesting on their own.
Yeah, I would agree. I felt the story was very plain.
Yeah.
It wasn't the strongest point. It wasn't even like the draw. And yes, the thing was, the big crux of it is, what's really happened? We'll find out, and more twists are revealed. Oh, it happened this way. No, it happened this way. It's like, it made it very predictable, which, wasn't very, the reveal wasn't too, oh, that was a good twist. I was like, you should have seen this coming.
Yeah.
But I did like the interactions between the characters, but mostly between Tim and Pikachu. And like I liked Tim's character a lot because they're kind of like the ones who they're the character who's like the outsider, obviously, but they haven't integrated into this. Oh, we love Pokemon. We work, we live beside them and stuff. He is trying to like get acclimated to that environment, and it's like cool to see him kind of reject things. Like everyone's like, "This is how it is." He's like, no. Like, he's also dealing with like a lot of emotional stuff as well, and like the performance of trying to like mask that he's hiding this pain. Like he has this deep emotional pain from his childhood, and he's putting on the best face to kind of like deflect that constantly, while at the same time also being in this different world that he is not used to. This is not his world. And I felt like the performance was very believable from that. And I really liked that. And I'm glad Just Smith nailed that performance, essentially. Yeah.
I guess another criticism, not as hard, I think, as how the story ended up playing out, but something I was kind of disappointed in is I think I got to a point like maybe 60% of the way through the movie where I'm like, man, I feel like I'm seeing a lot of the same type of Pokemon over and over and over again. And I realize that there's probably very practical limitations behind that. But I think like what you were talking about, Damiani, with the city is like, well, the whole point of this place is that these Pokemon can live together. And if you're in this city, like, wouldn't there be a lot of them? And so by seeing the same things over and over again, it kind of undercut, I think, the concept of the city for me. And I wish they didn't keep reusing the same things in the shots as much as they did.
Yeah, I feel like because of the nature of the story, it just dictated them being in situations where they encounter a lot of unique Pokemon. Obviously I was spoiling stuff. They come across certain Pokemon a few times because it's part of the plot, and I do think because they kept the story so simple, they kept it a very rooted, grounded story. It's not too fantastical, and because it deviated from like, oh, it's not a Pokemon trainer going on their adventure, you do lose some of that spectacle in terms of like the breadth of the amount of Pokemon that live in that world. They give you of course, you get the shot. Here's a Snorlax in the middle of the road, like haha, yeah, of course you're gonna expect that, but they don't really explore too, as best I can remember. It's a lot of familiar faces, and you see them either in extended shots for a long time or you come back to them again. And yeah, there was a little bit of like I don't want to say a shortcoming, but something I was hoping to see more was just like a more variety of Pokemon.
Yeah.
Because like they're doing this unique style. It's like, oh, how's this one look? How's this one look? And it was obviously budgetary concerns. Like they couldn't go all out on that. And but I also think like the story kind of dictated they needed to go in that path. So maybe if they make a sequel or something,
right,
they can expand upon that and actually we get more of that variety.
Something I was really happy about is that it's not reliant on references. Like references are obviously there and they do cute things, but it leans more into the chemistry of its characters. And I just thank you for doing that. And overall, like despite my complaints, I had a really good time and would love to see them take another crack at this. Just another live action Pokemon movie because I think this was like a really solid, really fun movie to watch, and I'd be curious to see like how things get even better from here on out. So yeah, like good job.
Do you think this will be a discovery point for a lot of people in terms of Pokemon? I know Greg Miller is like I'm a Pokemon fan now after he saw it.
It's hard. I think that it's one of the things we get emails sometimes where they're like, man, you guys. The way that you guys communicate things sometimes, like you realize most people like aren't aware of like half the stuff that you're talking about. And so just kind of like in the circles that I communicate with, it's like everybody has some frame of reference for Pokemon, and that's totally not true. Yeah. And so like I don't know. Sometimes like I don't know. I'd be curious. I would like for people to write in and be like, this was my first experience with Pokemon. I'm sure it will be. It seems like it's been very popular, so like I'm sure it will be, and I think that's a strength of it. And you saying like Greg Miller coming out and being like, "Hey, I'm a Pokemon fan now." Like this movie lends itself to that. It's very approachable. You can enjoy it, I think, without knowing anything about Pokemon. I think, of course, you'll enjoy it if you do know something. But yeah, I don't know. What do you think, Damiani?
I'd like it to. Yeah, I think it's a gateway. I think this and like and earlier on, Pokemon Go. I think
yes.
Pokemon Go was a huge gateway
definitely.
for a lot of people, much more potent, I would say, than this film. Sure. But this is just another avenue for them to approach. Okay, there are some people who just don't like games. Period. Doesn't matter if it's on a mobile phone. Like it's super easy to play. What if we make a film? You know, some people like will be drawn to this, and like I imagine most people who have access to any kind of like internet or media have probably seen an image of a Pokemon, even if they weren't aware of it. Probably at some point Pikachu or something. Yeah. And seeing
Pikachu's in the Macy's Day Parade.
Yeah. Like I mean that was I feel like they were playing to that. Obviously, it's Detective Pikachu lead thing, but also, you know, maybe people thought, oh, it's kitty looking, or it's like it's an anime or something. That's not my thing. This is a live action movie with Ryan Reynolds. Okay, I will pay attention to this now.
Sure. Yeah.
It's just they're just trying to explore and broaden their appeal, and I think it was in that regard a success. And I think if they ever make a follow up, it will. You know, now more people be like, even though I don't play the games and this other stuff, I at least know I'm invested in this. I can come back for more.
Thinking about it, Pokemon has kind of had this nice string of like gateways. I think in relatively recent times, they've had Pokemon Go, they've had Pokemon Let's Go. Mm-hmm. They've had this movie.
They're recruiting,
right? Exactly. That's exactly what I was getting to. Is Nintendo Game Freak Pokemon World Domination is coming? Yeah, like. In 5 years' time, everybody will be a Pokemon fan.
Well, it's gonna be really interesting to see how Sword and Shield sells. If that
I'm gonna make a bold prediction here.
It'll sell more probably than the last one, but by how much? Yeah, there's just lots of everything you mentioned. The Switch, a lot of people own the Switch, and they're like, well, maybe now's the time. Like
they're gonna get Pokemon into Fortnite somehow. Who knows? Who knows? The last thing that I want to talk about, and maybe the most feel-good thing on this list, is a pretty good feel-good list. But I really enjoy this game. I know you adore this game to your core, and you've been playing playing it because of the Castlevania Anniversary Collection, and that is Super Castlevania IV.
Oh, whew. Jones, let Jones just like have this moment.
Yeah, this is like an all-time favorite for you.
Hey, let's start it out. I'll critique Super Castlevania IV.
All right.
Probably the easiest Castlevania game, right?
Yeah, it's pretty easy compared to other Castlevania games. For me at least, and maybe this isn't the case for you, it ramps up a lot at the end.
Yeah.
But for the most part, yeah, it's pretty easy.
There's one specific platforming section with like all
Yes,
the things going
that's it.
diagonally.
That's
just like
yes.
screw this.
Yes.
But yeah, it was interesting. I was never really sure because like at the time when that came out, like Genesis was like the cool console, at least among my friends. Like video games were cool in general, but then once you actually like drilled down, it was like, no, the Genesis version of Aladdin's better. You know, like Sonic's cooler than Mario. Like there's just, Streets of Rage, Mortal Kombat with blood. Like there's just a lot more going on in the system that's like, it's a little more mature, a little more interest Splatterhouse. And so I thought, interesting when you compare Bloodlines to Super Castlevania IV, I thought this was kind of like my easy, just made for the fans remake kind of like vibe. And so I really loved it, but I didn't, it wasn't really until much later that I was able to like compare, especially when we did the retro game trailers of comparing Super Castlevania IV. I don't even think I understood that it was like a remake of sorts of Castlevania 1. But so I'm just tickled that like, all the allies love it and that we can celebrate it because I can close my eyes and just that whole game flashes in front of me. Like I played it so many times.
It just nails so much. It looks gorgeous. It has really interesting and varied environments. The new whip mechanics are like, regardless of how you feel about how easy it is, like they are really fun to mess around with, and just watching you do tricks with it, where like you'd have something below the platform, and just like lay the whip down and have it damage it. Like just so many cool things that you can do in that game. I love the way that like environments rotate in that game. It's still really cool and impressive. But Damiani, what is your experience with Super Castlevania IV, and how do you feel upon revisiting it?
I mean, I agree with everything you say there. I feel like the game, having dabbled in the older ones at some point before playing Super Castlevania IV, I felt like this was just such a, even though it might be easier, I haven't really sat and thought about that much. I mean, I guess I can agree with that. I feel like the presentation of this game just like elevated to just a different level that like I don't actively want to go back and ever play any. I don't like playing Castlevania 1, 2, or 3. When I'm given the option of Super Castlevania beside, I'm like, no, I really don't want to touch these. I don't care. Like I want to go this one. It's that for me. It's always I want to play Super Castlevania 4 or Symphony of the Night, and I usually gravitate back.
That's breaking my heart.
And I usually go back to Super Castlevania 4 because I'm like, oh, it's shorter. It's not as intense, and like I just. No matter how many times I replay it, I just love going through those environments. I mean, you put it very well, Ben, about like what they do so that makes them such great levels. Like accompanied by like the music, whether it's like the updated themes, new arrangements of the classical stuff, and then like the new compositions they did for it. The reimagining of the boss fights. It's like, oh, remember like the bat that you fought in the first one? There's like flies on. Well, later on, it's like made of gold coins and stuff.
There's a spot
dust,
in that gold
like,
level that's rough too.
Oh yeah, that level's a nightmare.
Yeah,
I think it's like the hardest level.
I don't think I would say that like Castlevania 4 is an easy game. It's just compared to
we don't want to get. I don't need to get hooked on, or hung up on that. But yeah, like the reimagining of the older bosses, bringing them in, just the new bosses you come across. It just manages to keep doing new things in the levels to keep you on your feet, and just when you feel like comfortable, I feel like I've mastered this to like, oh, here's a new type of enemy combined with like a new type of thing. It's like, oh, now things coming out of the walls, or like, oh, there's this painting, oh, grabs you, holds you in place, like I can't move, now an enemy is coming at me, or oh, now you want me to go down instead of up, and now I got the Medusa heads also coming through with flying enemies. It's like, oh, that's intense. And then like the gears and like going up the tower. There's just so many moments in that game. Like each level has a moment, but it just nails the atmosphere. Like I just love the opening level. It's just really good to replay no matter how many times. And I feel like I'm just gonna play a level or two just to like get that, satisfy that craving. And I look down, I'm like, I'm halfway through the game. I'm just gonna keep going now, I guess. And even parts when I was younger or played earlier that I was frustrated with, it feels so good even when you know how to do them. It just feels good to go through them again because the spectacle of a lot of the battles, the boss battles, is still so good. I just like those moments where even like Frankenstein coming in and it's like, wait, I've done this battle, but like he's gonna hurl a holy water at me. Like, oh, I forgot for a second. Oh, yeah, I forgot he does that, and you gotta dodge it. It's not like complicated, but it's like a nice touch to that. Like the Golem boss who like gets bigger and then like drops blocks on you. You're like, first time, you're like, what am I? Wait, what? It's simple, but it's just intimidating. I love that feeling about it.
The dancers can be really tricky.
Oh gosh, yes.
The ghost dancers moving around. And
because like they vanish. Even that like the lead up and stuff with like the minion dancers, like the tables flying at you, like chandeliers falling again. It's just, it does so many good things, and like the themes of each level, like they're just well thought out, and there's still secrets. There's still secrets in this game, like really good secrets tied into it, and not just like the old thing of breaking walls and stuff. It's just. Those moments when you pass too far in a level, oops, I could have gone that. Oh, it's too late. Like, do I kill myself and go back, or do I just keep going? It's it's quite the experience, and I know. I personally think there have been superior Castlevania games since then that have come along that were like the better.
Yeah.
For some reason, this
it's
is
like
my
a tribute. It's just it's a classic version of Castlevania.
It's my favorite
like,
one to go
just
back and
captured in
replay.
time.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. That's a quality I think it has going for it. Is it's so easy to just jump into and play and to just keep going with. And this is oversimplifying the problem, but in an ideal world, one of the things that I would put in that ideal world is we would get alternating classic style Castlevania and then Symphony of the Night style Castlevania, basically until the end of time. And alternating
like
every
Call
year.
of Duty, just
And
every like.
And maybe that wouldn't work for a lot of people, but I think I could get behind that. Just until the end of time.
And you know what's funny, Damiani, I didn't really notice it until we'd streamed it the other day about like why I think I love Castlevania IV so much, and that is the style of it. And then I really get a sense when I play the other games, it's like these are dynamite action games. But when I play Super Castlevania IV, I really feel like I'm Simon Belmont going through this. I really feel like I'm controlling this character, and I can kind of like animate him in a way where I can be really responsive with stuff that's happening in the environment. And there's just specific sections where I think they really take a step back from your traditional just throw everything at the player, so they'll have to overcome all this adversity, to like, let's just let them just walk through this part because it's spooky, like let's actually have like an interesting setup. I love when you finally get to the castle. There's not a lot of ramp up to it. There's not some boss you fight before you get to the castle.
Yes.
You go through this weird part where I think it's when they first introduced the red skeletons that will come back up after a while, and you're in a forest, and all of a sudden there's no enemies, and you just like the music kind of just gets really quiet and simple, and you like walk up a staircase, and there's this row of statues. One of them's like crumbled, and then you just walk into the castle, and then it like totally changes the map. It's like now you're in the castle, and now you have to go through this area. And just the fact that they took time there is like, what an interesting design choice. Like, what an interesting point for them to be like, and breath. Okay, and now the last 35% of the game.
Man, it's so interesting hearing you say that, because I agree with you, and I think that's such a good point that you bring up. But it's why like I like Rondo of Blood a little bit more. I like Castlevania 1 a little bit more, is because of you were like they're great action games, and I think just mechanically and overcoming that challenge, that became such a huge appeal for me. Whereas you're talking about purely the aesthetics, which I also love, but I think that matters more to you than like how challenging a boss was.
Right.
So that's really interesting.
And Rondo especially is painfully brutally hard.
It is.
That game is.
It is. What I like about Rondo though is like, yes, it's super hard, but I feel like it has spikes for sure, but I feel like it's more consistent than other things like Castlevania 1, which I adore. Like the spike at death is like ludicrous. Like it is a crazy spike, at least for me, compared to a lot of the rest of that game. Whereas like, Rondo of Blood is hard, but it's a little bit smoother overall, I think. I don't know.
But that's what's fun about these collections, and why I love working on retros, because, and I'm sure you had a bunch of eye-opening experiences working on Devil May Cry for the retro.
Yeah.
It just going through the practice of playing 1, then 2, then 3, then 4, then DMC, then 5.
Yes.
And I loved all of the moments, just retro aside, but I loved you talking about 5 at any point when our audience didn't know we were working on the Devil May Cry retro, and I could see it in your eyes.
Yes.
You were like, well, you see, 5 brings about a lot of classic things about DMC, and it's like, he knows that because he's doing the retro.
Yeah.
But it was just fascinating playing Castlevania 1, 2, 3, 4, Bloodlines, Rondo.
Yep.
And Rondo just jutted out to me of like, what's this game's problem?
Yeah.
Because it was my job. You know, like
Yeah.
I'd be at game trailers in my office and people come in like, hey, can you read this VO? And I'm like, huh? They're like, what, are you okay? I'm just like, yeah, I'm just even safe stating my way for this thing. It's just like, oh.
Well,
But it's amazing, you know, like, and it's so different.
It's funny how your memory betrays you in a lot of ways. Where when these games are spaced so far out, or when you've had a series that's been running for a long time, like in some instances, it's like, okay, well, I played this as a child, or I played this as a teenager, or I played this 5 years ago. Like with Devil May Cry 1, I was like, yeah, I got through it and it's good. It's pretty. I feel like it's pretty straightforward. And I was like, oh no, like this is a lot harder than I remember, or this punishes you in different ways than I remember. And then like Devil May Cry 3, it was like, man, I remember this being really brutal. But playing so much Devil May Cry back to back, I'm like, no, this isn't so bad. Like if you pay attention, you learn the systems. Like it's still hard, but yeah, I wish I could do it with everything.
Yeah.
Like when it's like, okay, well now I'm gonna commentate on this. I wish with everything I could be like, okay, well, I played this, then this, and then this, and then this. Obviously, we don't have the luxury to do that. It's rare circumstances when we can, but it really does inform you so much, and it's awesome.
It's like, hey, Ben, here, Mega Man. I'll see you in 4 months.
Right.
Bye.
Yeah, that would be awesome. Well, the thing about Mega Man is like you've got so many offshoots that are doing very different things.
Yep.
So. But yeah, Damiani, so you gravitated to Super Castlevania IV. Were there any games on the Anniversary Collection that also surprised you or that you're also really curious about?
I mean, I'm curious about playing the NES version of Kid Dracula, but I haven't touched any other game on that yet.
Gotcha.
I just
Keep going to Castlevania IV. Yeah.
It's like, there's all these other games, but
I have to ask because it seemed really weird to me. Maybe I'm making too big of a stink about it, but like, dude, why can't you remap buttons? And why is X not jump and square whip? What
I didn't realize
going
you couldn't
on?
do that in this version, so they don't let you do that, huh?
Well, I mean, maybe a patch is coming and it's already out, but like when I last played the
I haven't tried
Anniversary
it.
Collection, you could not remap buttons, and I'm playing on PS4 and they mapped it in a really weird way. I got used to it, but...
Do they also have the arranged version of Super Castlevania 4? Because the PS1 classic, or some version has the one with it where he has pink hair and it's like different music.
Whoa.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, dude. Whoa.
I'm not imagining this. This was
No, I believe you. I just don't know.
It was on one of the PS1 collections or something.
Whoa.
It might not have been Super Castlevania 4. It might have been
think so.
Bloodlines or something where there's an arranged version.
Okay.
It's like slightly different music and different, like, Simon looks a little different. I'll have to, we can look it up later. I don't want to keep talking about something I might be completely wrong about.
No, you're good. Man, that was a really feel-good. Let's talk about Castlevania 4.
It's a feel-good game.
I think what's going to be a little bit less feel-good is this HOTTAKE! Because it's I don't know how else to say this. As great as it's been talking about these games, and I think it's been pretty positive, except for Rage 2, I guess. There's been some disappointment hanging in the air, and some of that disappointment is coming from Game of Thrones Season 8, which I'm sure we'll talk about on some level. But I don't, I guess, specifically want to talk about Game of Thrones Season 8. I want to talk about the reaction to Game of Thrones Season 8. And there's been a lot of discussion to the reaction of this thing, and it also applies to video games. We could interchange this with many, many things. But people are really disappointed. They're leaving a bunch of negative reviews on IMDb. They're making petitions. They're saying, hey, please change this. And it's getting a lot of signatures, and then people are reporting on how much attention this petition is getting. And there's been kind of different sides of all of this, where some people are like, hey, like, what? Of course, like, let us criticize this thing. Let us use the tools available to us to express how we feel about this thing that we've potentially spent, years of our lives enjoying or thinking about or investing in one way or another. And then there's another side that says, hey, it's fine to critique things, but you guys are demanding that the people who worked on this change that work, and that's not right. That's crossing a line. And so I want to talk about that process of feedback and how you feel about it, and what you think is like the best, healthiest way to have discourse, and maybe even just your commentary on the response to this season.
I mean, I feel like in this unique case of Game of Thrones, it's a little bit more complicated simply because of the unique circumstances behind what's going on, and the fact that we have, first time I can remember, such a high-profile fantasy story that started in one other medium and then was finished in another.
Yeah.
And then people look back, well, this is the source canon one, and now this one is finished. So is this there's like, questions about the validity despite everything that's been said publicly. No, this is how it's supposed to end or stuff like that. There's that doubt that lingers there. And I think to that extent, it's throwing fuel on the fire of, this isn't my ending, or this isn't how it was supposed to be. And like the criticisms are about, we should get a different version when it's all finished, essentially, because that'll be the most faithful. And people like to point to, in this specific instance, seasons 1 through 4, partway through 5, being so rich and well done because they were just gobbling up the source material. Like, we picked the best parts of the books and we're like realizing them in such a wonderful way. These are great performances, great writing. This is some of the best television, I would argue, I've ever seen. And then once we get past the source material, it just falls off. Mm-hmm. And it's not just been season 8, it's been coming for a few years now, where except for a few momentary brilliant points in the last few seasons, it's mostly been kind of a disappointment.
Yeah.
And I think this was the reaction this season. It was just like this build up, and finally people can release it. Like, that's it. I'm fed up with this. Like, you've gotten it so wrong. Like, the quality sucks. The writing sucks. Like, that's like what you're seeing a lot of. And I think it's because now we're at the end. This is where it's just all built up, and it's just like an explosion of outrage.
Yeah.
And I think that's why you're seeing a little bit more extreme reactions, like the petition. It's like, do you really need to do that? Like this has to be like, you're doing it for the attention. I feel like at this point, like, I mean, so people do generally want them to change and do another ending, but did you really need to change that org petition for, like, come on, like that's a little ridiculous. But yeah.
I think, whether it be positive or negative, people should be allowed to express whatever opinion they have on an entertainment product. Like, of course, we can't.
Yeah.
The people getting mad that people are being. From my perspective, what I don't understand is when people are like, I liked it, so why are you hating on it? It's like, no, like, just like you're expressing that you liked the thing. Yeah. This other person is expressing that they liked the thing, and I don't like what you're not. It's a losing fight if you're just gonna try to get everybody to agree with you.
Yeah,
like that I don't understand.
Right.
But I think another thing for me, and I don't know if you guys agree with this, is I think, like I said, I think people should be able to say what they want and feel how they feel about a thing, but like, I also think on some level, like, you can't live life expecting things to change just because you don't like it. Like, at a certain level, like, it's okay that you hate it or you think that it sucks or disappointed you or made you feel bad, but like, that's gonna happen a lot. Like, sometimes things are just bad, and I don't think it's a good thing to hold on to. I think it is healthy to express your disappointment and get that out there and to say that. I think it's awesome that people have a lot of ways to do that, but like, you can't hold on to it forever, I don't think.
I think it's important as a fan, as someone who's into science fiction or fantasy or just fiction in general, to have your dreams completely crushed every now and then. You know, like, I think it's healthy. You know what I mean? Because it's going to happen. You're going to go through something that you've cherished way too much. Yeah. For me, that was Phantom Menace. Like, that was a big, big deal. When I was driving home, I was like, I think that was a bad movie. And I was just like, my brain had to like accept it. You know, it was like, I just, like, from the moment I saw Darth Maul, I was like, there's no way this is going to be bad. There's no way. Look at that dude. Oh my God. He's got a double-bladed lightsaber. This is going to be the greatest movie. Liam Neeson is in this film. You know, like, there was just so many things that, you know, once I was like, yeah, Jar Jar looks silly, but he's not going to be that bad. Remember, he's like, C-3PO taken out of context could probably be silly. And I think, yeah, you just have to accept that, like, you know, there's so many. It is so tough for someone. I know there's like a lot of anger directed at, you know, the two showrunners, but like, it is so difficult to produce a body of work to be able to be put in a position with that much trust, where you are given 8 seasons of a show to produce something, and it's like there's no way that anyone could have been in charge of that and anyone could have directed that it would have arrived at a place that everyone was satisfied with. And so I think it's important for a lot of these people, specifically the people like doing petitions, because the Last Jedi petition is up to like 800 million or something crazy. Like it's some just astronomical number. And
what?
Yeah, or somebody tweeted that the other day. They might have been joking, but they like took a screen grab like of that of the Last Jedi, which is still going. And the thing that cracks me up is I'm sure there's one person that there probably is like a group of friends or like a social community that got behind that initially and got it out for everybody, to see it. But it's probably just a handful of people that are actually in charge of this Game of Thrones petition or this Last Jedi petition. And I'm almost positive there's no script. Like they haven't figured that out yet. They just want to see if they can get the funding and they get the support. But once it actually gets to a script position and you have like say it actually happened, like say the miraculous happened and Disney's like, we'll do it. We're literally going to throw Last Jedi out, and you're going to come in and you're going to write this. And they're like, okay, great. And then like this group of friends that started that Last Jedi position is going to get in and be like, okay, let's figure that out. And 2 friends are going to be like, wait, no, Kylo's got to do this. One's going to be like, no, dummy. And like, here we are again. Like some creative, that's why bands break up. That's why in games, that's why you hear like tragically some developer will leave some company that they've been around forever. And you're like, what's going on? It's like they just... either they had some kind of, creative fallout, or they want to try something new and want to do something new and interesting. And I wish I could bestow upon people like whatever kind of inner peace that I had, because I think what these people need in their lives, and what's interesting is that like I feel I have enough like people around me, whether it's in my community or whether it's my family or my friends, that I can bounce stuff off of and be satisfied with, where it's like Amanda and I were in, Hawaii when this finale happened. And like, we really got to a point where we're like, okay, we're on vacation. Let's stop talking about this, because like we're frustrated. We have a lot of issues, but we should just stop talking. And then for 2 hours, we'd talk about something else and then just be silence. And I'd be like, see, the thing about Cersei is, it's just like, all right, here we go. But I have her to bounce those things off of. And then like, kind of when I can come to terms with those things, then I'm okay. Then I'm at peace. I was dying to come back and talk to Damiani about it, but it's like I think it's important for you to kind of plan a roadmap when you have issues, when you play Rage 2 and you're like, there's something about this story that I'm not really understanding. Yeah. I'm going to run it by this small group of people. I'm going to get what they think about it. Whether they agree or disagree, I'll be done after that.
Yeah.
And I think some people are just so committed to something, and especially people that think, I'm sorry to keep bringing up Last Jedi, but like because I think the thing about Last Jedi that resonates with me now is it's not over. Like we still have one more movie coming, and then of course there's all these other movies planned, and like Mandalorian and all this other stuff going on. Where Game of Thrones is done. I mean, we're gonna get more shows and stuff, but like that arc is done. And there are so many times I've done something in Star Wars, it was awful. There's so many times when the Ewoks and the Christmas special and Force Unleashed 2 and like it sucks that they're there, and I wish I could retcon them and get them out, but that's kind of the nature of being a part of something that is this huge.
Right. And
so I don't think it's a matter of writing or directing or acting. I think it's a matter of it just being too damn popular. And naturally this is going to happen. And you need to just understand emotionally what you're going to do in the best of times and worst of times before you even start to embrace something. I think it's good for your health.
It's interesting that you bring up Rage 2, because just for me, it's interesting comparing disappointment with something like Rage 2 to disappointment with Game of Thrones for me, because like I got some enjoyment out of Rage 1, but I had no real attachment to it. Like if Rage 2 was a great game, great. If it was a bad game, like I'm not going to be that mad about it. Whereas just for me, Game of Thrones was very, very, very special to me. It meant a lot for me. Yeah. It was a story that wowed me in ways that nothing else had at that point. Like I was like, I didn't know fantasy could make me feel this way. And I like, it was mine. Like I loved, like I know it was like this super huge popular show that a lot of people love and a lot of people are near and dear to, but it felt that way to me. It had that effect on me. And that is a different level of anger and disappointment when something like that disappoints you. something that opens you up so much and really like just makes you fall in love with it so completely that when it disappoints you like that, it is indescribable, like how you feel. And of course, at the end of the day, it's just fiction. It's just a TV show, and on some level, I think you know that, but it still creates that feeling. However, I think in the last couple of days, I was like, oh, wait, this is kind of awesome, because that strong negative reaction was making me think about things that maybe I wouldn't, where I was like, I really should read those books. I've always meant to read those books.
Sure.
But like now I want to out of spite. Like now, like it was. I don't know if I'll actually be able to do it, but it was creating that feeling, and that was good. And then I was like, well, I wonder what other fantasy stories are out there. I should go and explore. And I do think there is like that kind of nice silver lining where it has this cause and effect, where it's like, well, I was disappointed by this. Let me maybe be a little bit more exploratory on finding other things. And I think that's good and healthy. Because I wouldn't, if Game of Thrones, the season finale was just like the best and I loved it and it was exactly what I wanted it to be, I don't think I'd be doing those things. And that's really, really cool. Yeah. And I also think, and maybe this is a bit of a stretch, that on some level, it's probably influencing future storytellers, where they're like, okay, I'm not going to do that. And like it's some intangible way that's probably a huge net positive. And I think maybe to bring it back more around in a general sense, I think it's easy, especially on the internet where you have communities that are hyper-focused on one thing, to get perspective, to realize how broad the world is, and like to take a step back and be like, there's a lot of other stuff out there, man. And like I said, I think you should be allowed to voice your displeasure or to be angry or to feel however you want to feel. But I always think perspective can help.
I think anger's the thing. Like, if I can scream about this last season with the best of them, man. Like, some of that stuff really, 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 really pissed me off. The funny thing about Game of Thrones is it's not like a general sense. I'm not like, I got stakes for everybody. I had like 4 or 5 characters that I was like, like I have a very specific idea over what I would like to have happen to this person, good or bad. And yeah, like as I was saying earlier, I think it's just good to like, know where that distance is. Like, have an investment where I'm still enjoying it, but my expectations aren't too intense that I'm going to be burned by this thing. And so I think hopefully, like I said, it's where it's healthy to go through this process. I think, hopefully people are discovering that now, where they're like, yeah, maybe I was just a little too invested in this. Because I just don't think that there's a right or a wrong way. And even something like, it's been 20 years now, actually, like almost to the day, because we just celebrated the 20th anniversary of Phantom Menace. I still love those costumes. I still love that music. I still love Darth Maul as a character.
I still really like the fight scene.
I still, in a lot of dumb ways, will go to bat for Jar Jar as an idea. As an idea of like kind of this reject from a war-driven culture that like discovers these heroes, and it's like, man, this started on the right path. It just didn't end in a good place.
Yeah, and Brandon, I think that's so good, and it's very easy to forget, especially when you're angry at something, is making sure you're trying to see the good and being like, well, okay, well, at least they did that right, or they nailed that. And for me, for season 8 of Game of Thrones, like, it was gorgeous. Like,
oh, yeah.
Like just visually, the costumes, the sets, the way they framed shots, like it was really
that wave of undead coming at the camera will stay with me forever. And so I just think there's a different. The debate is the best. I live for it. That's the greatest. Like, especially with. You're going to disagree with something. Some friends you've had for a really long time, and their tastes. And so even before you start talking to them, you're like, you hated that, right? And they're like, oh, I hated it. And I love discussing those things, because then you learn as an artist, you learn as a viewer, you learn as a human being. It's, the human emotional experience. It's just the anger that it's like, don't do that to yourself, really step back and think, like, what if you remade season 8? That wouldn't make sense. Like, you bring all these actors back, all these people, what if they're not into it? Like, who's going to write it? Who's going to direct it? Like, it just logistically, it's like, it just doesn't, you got to see this through. Yeah. And so I think that's not necessarily born from an actual creative analysis over how should this have been done, but just pure rage, deep down. And that's like, that rarely produces anything good. if all of this was done out of love, Star Wars, Game of Thrones, whatever, coming at it out of anger, it's not going to produce a better product, I don't think.
Damiani, when you are like immensely disappointed by something, like soul crush disappointed, do you have a method for dealing with it?
I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, I feel like, obviously, I'll either vocalize it and complain to somebody, or complain about it on like the internet or something, or I'll internalize it and just be like, yeah, it's not really worth complaining about to anyone. But obviously, like that didn't seem like it went over well to me. Obviously, with Game of Thrones has been very vocal about that. But I mean, there's been like other things in the past that like had great expectations and ultimately had like shortcomings, and like I was really invested in and didn't come to pass. For you, it sounds like it was like the prequels was the big one for you, like Star Wars. Like for me, it was the two Matrix trilogies. Like I was in love with the Matrix. That was like one of the like as a kid, I was like, this is teenager. It was like ultimate. Like this is like. I love this film. Like, this is great. They're gonna make 2 more of these. It's gonna be great. And I went to go see the second one, and further I got into it, I was like waiting for that moment where it's like, this is it. It's like I feel great. Like I feel safe that they have achieved like a good sequel. And that moment kept waiting, and like it got so far in the film, like I don't think we're gonna get to that point. And I'm like, where are we going with this? And it was even a worse feeling when I saw like the conclusion of the Matrix Revolutions. But it's funny though, like and thinking about like the Game of Thrones outrage right now, and thinking about like how disappointed I was with the 2 Matrix sequels with Reloaded and Revolutions. They're not the greatest films, but like enough time has gone by for those films. I rewatched them like a few months ago actually, and I was like, you know what? After having so much time to think about them, having more information from like the people who worked on it and like insight into what they were going for, and being able to look at it with like like I don't want to call it like the God eye, but like you now have ultimate knowledge. Like you've seen it, you've heard all the explanations. I get to like go back and like, how do you feel like it is like almost like 15 years later, and I watched it. I was like, it was kind of like it's difficult on a first or even a second watch to pick up on all the stuff, but they're not so bad actually. I was like, they're not the first movie, but I was like, you know what? I actually like I can follow now that I can follow these. I kind of enjoy them a little bit more. It's easier to rewatch them now than like trying to rewatch them when disappointed. And I wonder if that'll be like, I don't think it will quite be like that with Game of Thrones, but I wonder if like 2-3 years from now, if I did a rewatch and went through those like season 5 onward, do things not? I mean, there's still gonna be the bad writing, but maybe some of the stuff like goes down a little bit more smoothly because it's like, okay, now with expectations thrown out the window, like I'm not expecting certain things, because I feel like personal expectations really ultimately determine whether something lives up to your like is good or bad. Like it plays a large part in that. And I feel like something like Game of Thrones is probably like Lost before it. I was invested in Lost and watch it, but I feel like they're very analogous, is that people build up what should happen in their minds. And when that does not come to pass, they start scrutinizing, okay, well, let me look at the logic they did to get to this point that I didn't want or didn't expect this to happen. And they'll like, they'll find every hole in that and be like, yeah, this doesn't make sense. I mean, justifiable or not, that's ultimately what they do. And I wonder if, how much of that plays a part in people ultimately feeling underwhelmed at something. And does that like, and is that valid? Is it I see people argue sometimes you need to stop expecting things, or like stop expecting this to happen. Like throw that out and just be like, judge it on what it does and how it happens. And I'm like, I don't know, when something that's narrative driven and you're invested so much time in it, you have like, it's human nature to have expectations. It's like what is that argument?
And like one of the primary appeals of Game of Thrones is how intricate it is and how it builds upon itself. Right. And so to just like throw it out the window, and it's like, well, that's not what I was being sold.
Right.
Like then we're judging a different thing.
My least favorite comment that I see online that boils my blood every time I see it is people are like, it's just a show. And I'm like, stop it, because I guarantee, I don't know who you are, person on the internet, but I guarantee you there is something I could dig up that you would be like, wait, Sesame Street's a different story. You're like, oh, okay. You know, it's like there is something, you know, it could be anything, you know, Dungeons and Dragons or whatever, that like that's the thing you're actually attached to.
Right.
So that pisses me off. Like I saw a lot of people that were like, oh, all of these people being mad at Game of Thrones on Twitter. And it's like, what's that? Like, I wasn't into Lost at all. We watched 5 episodes of Lost, and I don't say this to burn the show, but like Amanda and I were like, let's do it. And 5 episodes in, we were like, cool, and we just weren't interested. You know, it's like, okay, I'm not wrapped up in this.
Bounced off.
And then, you know, 7-8 years later, the show wraps up, and like a lot of people were really frustrated. And like, I don't remember at the time being like, that show I didn't like. Suck it, viewers. That's a weird take for me. So like, yeah, season 8 of Game of Thrones exposed a lot of weird behavior online that I'm like, I don't like the way you're acting. I don't like the way you're acting.
Yeah.
I get almost scared now that we're leading up to E3 too. I get scared when a trailer drops and I see people being like, this is going to be so great. It's like, you don't know.
Right.
You know, it's like, that's a dangerous place to be. You embrace your excitement, embrace the anticipation. Like, I'm anticipating Animal Crossing, but I'm terrified of it at the same time because they might take it in some direction that I'm like, no. You know, so there has to be that part of my brain that's like, you know, make friends with disappointment because it could happen.
I think part of it for me is just that moment of finality where, like, Damiani was talking about it, where he was like initially watching Matrix Reloaded, and he's like, all right, that part's gonna come, right? And it's all gonna come together. It's gonna be great. Because I remember season 7 of Game of Thrones and the Beyond the Wall episode. I was like, that was bad, but the fight with the Night King's gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
And you have that, you know. I think naturally we just want to hold on to hope, especially if it's something that we care about. Like, this will turn around, this will get better. It's coming, I know it. But sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't turn around.
It's better to just recall the things you did enjoy than look forward to things that are totally out of your control.
Yeah. And I think like the best thing to do, to answer your question earlier about what do you do when you're disappointed, is like, I think there's something therapeutic about vocalizing your expectations. Like, just saying, okay, it didn't go the way I expected. How cool would it have been if they'd done this, this, and this, and sharing that with other people, and seeing people like, well, let me share what I thought. Like, I like that discourse. I like seeing it. It's not, you're basically not saying this. I'm not telling the creators this would have been better, but like in my mind, this would have been cool. I would have loved to have seen this. But I think it crosses the line when you start like demanding, like, oh, excuse me, showrunners, creators, authors, whatever. You should do my way is better. I know better than you. You need to be doing it this way. I'm an expert. I've read every book. I've read every like interview from Gurm and stuff. Like I'm a Shadow fan or whatever they called them back in the day or something. Remember Miguel Lopez explaining Shadow fans of Game of Thrones to me and stuff. I was like, what? Like that level of like, you think you're like more of an authority on it, and you know better. I think that crosses a dangerous line. But like it's a wonderful activity. Like that's the whole point of like having discussion, is like seeing all these different ideas.
You know, it's something I love doing more than anything else.
Yeah, I love that about it.
Are we ready for some emails?
Sure.
All right.
Jinx.
Our first email comes in from Jared, who says, the subject is, which company's stock are you buying for E3 2019? Hello, allies. With E3 just 3 weeks away at the time of him writing this. It's 2 weeks away now, isn't it?
3.
Is it 3?
No, we're 3.
Okay. We have one more week of May and 2 weeks in June.
Yeah.
Actually, wait, no, it's 2.5 weeks.
I wanted to resend a question that you discussed heading into 2019. Which company's stock in the gaming world would you buy for this year's E3? Obviously, no Sony messes up the equation some, but I still think it's a worthwhile discussion. For me, I feel like Bethesda has a ton of value recently. So I'm a long-term investor. Microsoft seems to be the one with the biggest potential payoff if the recent studio acquisitions all hit and Halo Infinite can reinvent a franchise that so desperately needs it heading into next gen. So, which stock are you buying? Which stock are you selling before E3 2019?
Really want to buy Microsoft stock.
I would agree with that.
Not just because of like everything alluded to in the question. Obviously, you got the new studio stuff, which, you know, hopefully get to see some of that. It sounds like they got some big things cooking finally. It's been a few years since, you know, they've drawn a lot of criticism about where were your games? Like, oh, they're in the works, you know, they're coming. This might be it. But also all the talk we've been hearing the last week or so about them partnering with Sony for like to make like their streaming, you know, delivery service to compete with Stadia. It's like, oh, hi, hey Google, you know us? Like, we're working together about this. The talks about their partnership probably with Nintendo as well. I mean, we already saw Cuphead come to Switch. There's rumors that Ori might come. There's rumors about like Xbox Live functionality coming to Switch. It sounds like they got a lot of really big things in the works, and it seems like once they start formally announcing all of that, it's going to be like, holy crap, look at what Microsoft is doing. And I think it might come to a head at this E3, especially with Sony not being there. I think I hope they realize that this is the moment to like, this is it.
Yeah,
like this is the time to like
it
have
feels
the
like
big
their moment.
celebration.
Yeah.
Yeah, the only other thing I would say would be Nintendo, but they specifically said there's no hardware at E3, right? Like, just because that's such a clear thing that, you know, investors understand. Like, oh, a new system. Oh, a thing that I can actually hold. Where it's tough to be like, no, there's new Animal Crossing coming. You know, like it's tough to kind of sell software as an idea. But yeah, not only Microsoft because of, you know, everything, all the unknowns that we have, but just from a stock perspective, like, you know, the difference between where they're going to be before E3 to where they're going to be after is probably the most substantial. Just looking at everybody, I think the surest bet. I'd love to make a video about this or do like, you know, an editorial or something. But I think like Ubisoft has had a fascinating journey this gen.
Ubisoft is a good pick.
Ubisoft, it just seems like, especially if Watch Dogs 3 happens, they have so many franchises that are doing really well. Even like Starlink, which isn't like a massive success, I think did okay and actually like had a couple of really smart pivots by like stepping away from the necessity of having those toys, adding Star Fox to it. And with, you know, Beyond Good and Evil looking as gorgeous as it is, I'm sure it's going to be a long time before we do that. But like Assassin's Creed's in great shape, you know, Division's in great shape. We might get a new Far Cry this year. I don't know, but like Far Cry 5 sold bonkers. Like they're just doing really, really, really well.
Right.
Again, there's not. If I was to buy into Ubisoft now, I don't think there would be that huge bump. You know, at E3, I think Microsoft, you know, definitely has more of that gap to fill. But I'm so impressed with Ubisoft. I came to that realization the other day where I'm like, what are they doing wrong? Not much. They're pretty successful right now.
I think a tougher question is, which stock are you selling?
EA.
But like,
EA's not going to do a lot this year.
I don't think you ever bought EA. You know, so that's where I want to come from.
Maybe before Battlefront 2, I might have bought.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah.
But like, are there any companies where you feel like maybe last year you were really in their court and this year you're not, or you're worried about what's going to happen at E3? So like, Bethesda's really tough for me because Doom Eternal is easily one of my most anticipated games for the rest of this year, and I think Youngblood looks really, really good. But just like the way Rage 2 is making me feel, and then obviously Fallout 76, and there's and Blades is like whatever. It's
Elder Scrolls and Starfield being so far off.
There's just this kind of like, I don't know if exhaustion is the right word, but just kind of this like feeling with Bethesda that's just been kind of sticking to them lately, for me anyway. And yeah, I don't know. It's hard. I think with any of these companies, there's things that I can point to. Like even EA, it's like, well, Jedi Fallen Order, and so it's hard to have any company where I'm like, I don't like anything you're doing.
If Square drops Avengers and does a huge Final Fantasy VII blowout, they could have a really good E3.
Oh yeah, they definitely could. But I mean, I think Square Enix is also a little high stakes. I mean, we'll see them showing off the 7 trailer already at State of Play 2. I wonder how, if any, impact they'll have on what they're planning to do in June. Like, did they tip their hand too soon? Like, oh, here, it's definitely coming. Is that going to diminish any of the impact of what we see at E3 or whatever June that they have? There's things to still be revealed in that, and we haven't gotten hands-on with it. There's the whole thing that, not saying it's going to, and I believe it, but you got to keep in mind there's still a chance it could not turn out well.
Yeah.
Like we've seen, they've shown us what we want to see to an extent, and
however, E3, it's not going to be releasing at E3, and so anything they show, just because we're limiting this to E3, it'll be a win for them.
I'm saying if they have it playable there and people walk away with bad impressions
that's a good point.
That might be like, despite all these hype trailers, people are like, it doesn't.
I mean, that would be
well.
like a crashing train levels of bad. Yeah,
but what I've seen, I don't know how they could really get it that wrong from what I've seen, but you never know.
You never know.
And Avengers reveal, it might look not like, whoa, what the hell is this? Weird. You know?
Would that crush you?
No, it wouldn't crush me. I would just be confused.
Sure.
Because there's no You know why it doesn't crush me? We just got another new trailer for it today. They haven't showed Cyclops yet, but Ultimate Alliance 3 just looks so great.
Man, Game Informer's been doing some stuff that I need to watch, but yes.
I love that you can't even tell what the hell's going on. Like, you look at gameplay and it's like 14. You're just like, I know there's heroes in there somewhere, but all I see is just swipe, explosion.
That's kind of awesome.
Spoof. But that's always what Legends and Ultimate Alliance was. And so, and Lego's been so good to Marvel over the years, and I'm pretty good, especially with the 10 years of the MCU wrapping up. It's like there's no need or hole that exists in my Marvel love right now that needs to be filled by that game. It seems so bizarre when they announced it when they did and haven't said anything.
When did they announce it? Was it
like 4 years ago?
Oh,
something crazy.
Our next question comes in from Morgan, who says, because of the progressing advances in technology and the way we experience games, will any of it matter artistically in the long run? Can someone who started with Breath of the Wild appreciate the original Legend of Zelda? This is both concerning and exciting because we will have a steady stream of great new content, but its full significance may go unappreciated. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's always hard. You definitely see evidence of it's not an umbrella statement, but I think it gets harder for younger generations to go back and play the oldest of things. Obviously, like some classics, still at least some people will obviously be able to play it and still be like, yeah, Zelda 1 was like a good game. And I understand Breath of the Wild. But I think there's going to be more people who are like, that's really hard to go back and play this game. Like, I'm just going to play it, like, I'm just going to stick with Breath of the Wild. Like, it's too difficult for me to go back and play this, like, old NES game. That, especially when you were never exposed to that type of game in the first place. Like, it's easier for someone like me who lived through that and, like, got to play those games. And now it's to a person who's never experienced it before. It's a harder ask, but what I would like to believe is that the essence of that game is carried on in future installments. Like I would argue Breath of the Wild. I have argued in Breath of the Wild. It very well it does a great job of encapsulating the spirit of Zelda 1, reimagined. And so if someone goes back and plays Breath of the Wild and says, "Oh, I love this game," it's like, well, you don't need to go back and play Zelda 1, but like just know that this game is like a new interpretation of that. So when I see people praise Breath of the Wild, I feel like in some way they're experiencing like the essence of this old game. They don't need to necessarily go back. It's not fully addressing the issue of that. You're now like that work is not going to be experienced in its original form anymore. But at least I think that's kind of like the nature of things. Like nothing is going to last forever. Like there'll be a day probably where you might not be able to play the original Zelda for some reason or something. Who knows? Or games go away.
That doesn't happen.
And I'm glad we probably will not live to that day. But you can't, like, things do not last forever. And like the point of passing on things so that new generations can have some way of relating to it is an important thing. And as long as games don't forget their past and find new ways to like rework them into future installments, I think that's good enough. As long as there are people out there, critics or people, fans who say this is an element from an older game and stuff, and like I'm glad they brought it back, or I'm glad they reinterpreted it or reimagined it this way. I think that is in some regard paying respects to older things and like honoring them and making them still kind of relevant, where it's so difficult to go back and experience the original.
I think it's less difficult than people give it credit for. I'm not saying it can't be or that people don't experience this, but it's a very different thing when you revisit something old and you know it's good and you know why people like it, but like you haven't experienced it for yourself. Whereas like you said, the essence, I think that's really important. There's a lot of feelings that you get in Breath of the Wild that translate to the original Legend of Zelda. And so if you've played through Breath of the Wild and you know it, you understand what it's trying to get out of you, I think it's easier to approach the Legend of Zelda because you realize like what they're going for. And so I think in some instances, having that experience may make it easier to go back than if you were to just start at the original Legend of Zelda.
Yeah. And I'm not saying it's impossible or even it's that difficult, but if someone never played an NES game until after they played modern games, like they never had that exposure. So let's say Breath of the Wild is their first Zelda game, and they started on like this generation of games. That's when they got into gaming. Telling them to go back to play Zelda 1, saying it was a big overworld for a time, like you had the freedom to explore. They're gonna look at these tiny screens. They're gonna see the map isn't that big. They're gonna think they're gonna
Imagination.
They're gonna be like, I know, but like they're gonna be like, this
you're
is
right,
like,
you're
this
right,
is worse
you're
than
right.
a mobile game. Like you can tell them it and they can believe it because like, okay, you lived during that. I'll trust you. I trust your opinion. All these people who lived then said it's true, but like fully grasping like the actual like experience of it, I don't think they'll ever be able to get that. And like that's a tall order to ask. Like some people come back and like, okay, I played Zelda 1, I get it, but like, do they really fully get it? I don't think that's necessarily possible for a majority of people who are younger that did not live through that.
You know what crushes me, especially in the last like 2-3 years, my girlfriend and I have made a point of playing games together, and we'll play a wide variety of things. And she is just not into sprite-based video games. Like, they'll have a lot of moments where I'm like, this looks so good, I can't believe how well this still holds up. She's just like, yeah, it's boring. Like, there's not enough going on. And I'm totally cool with it, but it also destroys me.
It's been managed those. How close are you gonna get to it?
Yes. And she's still, to her credit, like she's still willing to like play them and experience them. It's just like that's
personal
her,
taste.
It's exactly.
Yeah.
I think it actually has more to do. I have 2 godsons, and I am always whenever like one of them breaks out the Switch, I'm like, what are you playing? And I went over to their house the other day. What is he playing on his Switch? Kirby.
Which
The original NES Kirby.
oh right.
And so like I don't get a sense that he's like, what's this? And I feel bad because he was like, calls me Uncle Brandon. He's like, Uncle Brandon, when you played Kirby, and I'm like, I'm sorry. I wish I could help you. I don't know. I don't have a lot of experience with Kirby.
I love that he assumes that you did though.
Yeah, no, of course, because you're older and this is an old game.
You're
and
the video game guy.
Yeah, I had another friend who was a kid, and he's playing through Majora's Mask, and he's like, in this one dungeon in Majora's Mask, I'm like, dude, I played Majora's Mask like 5 times, but I don't remember any of it. I've specifically like, how to get past puzzles and stuff. And so what I find a lot with kids is that if something just doesn't perform well, that's the turnoff. Where like this doesn't work. Like classic video of a girl who has a Game Boy and she's like touching the screen. She's like, what? And they're like, no, the buttons. And she's like, oh, forget it. It's like the Back to the Future 2. Like, you have to use your hands. Like, I think that's, the biggest gap when, like, a game requires a weird controller or is on a weird console and the kid's like, well, I'm just not familiar with this. But I think there's, like, enough differences. Look at, like, Undertale. It's like that's... I think in a lot of ways that could not have been released on the NES, but it still has a lot of flavor.
Undertale is a really good thing to bring up.
Look at Minute. It has like a lot of flavor of like a really old class. There's no color in Minute. It's just black and white, and seems like a game that could potentially have been made back in the day. It just is built upon these ideas that we've developed for so long, and so. Where somebody new to these games will spend a lot of time with something remains to be seen, but just trying it and enjoying it, I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of that stuff isn't difficult. That's why the original Super Mario Brothers is such an excellent video game. Is because it's like it doesn't matter how old you are, it doesn't matter how young you are, it doesn't matter how many games you've played before, you just get it. Like
that's not actually true.
The original?
There was a popular article that came out in the last few years. They asked kids to play it, or people like younger people to play it, like elementary school age to preteens, and they were like couldn't jump over the first gap, like because the control,
we're doomed.
The controller, like the mechanics of it, like it seems so simple. It is once you explain
not
it.
simple. Oh, I mean, I couldn't beat Super Mario Brothers until the game trailers days.
They weren't used to hitting buttons for inputs. They were used to a touchscreen on a phone. So like, why do I have? They were like confused. Yeah. And as we get further along in time, technologies get advanced. The ways we engage with our technology, like how we provide our inputs, is going to probably get to a level where like that you're joked about Back to the Future, but we'll probably get to a point where it's like we have to use this style.
Yeah.
No, how do you even do that? It's like when you give like a kid a rotary phone. Like I'm almost too like not old enough to like remember those.
Yeah, it's a weird example.
Like, what are these things?
Smash Brothers. They're like, I'm just now getting good at Smash Brothers, and I'm not getting better at Smash Brothers. And like when we play, it's like, all right, gotta have the GameCube controllers, and like I don't get that. I'm like, yeah, okay, like I'm fine with the Switch controller. Like and I'm not saying like you're wrong. I just like I don't, I'd have to kind of go back in time to understand like, oh, okay, like it was a form factor you got really comfortable with, and so I get it in that extent. But it's just like I'm so far apart from that. I was not involved in that back in the day that like there's really no entry point for me. There's no way. So I think it has to do with performance. I think it has to do with technology inputs rather than like a style of a game necessarily. But it's tricky. I'm obsessed with that. I'm really, especially got the kid coming in a couple months. I'm obsessed with like what naturally is this kid going to gravitate toward? And because I'm getting a lot of questions from people. They're like, what games are you going to try to subject your kid to? And I'm like, nothing. Like I'm gonna have no expectations over like what that kid. If like one day, because I would much rather, instead of being like, here's Final Fantasy VI, I'm like, okay, Dad, it's good. Like,
I do think that moment will happen.
Right. But I would like, how much more rewarding would it be if, like the day like comes home from school and he's like, Dad, have you heard of Final Fantasy? And I'm like, yes, I have. And just like, cool.
Why, yes, Locke, I have.
Yeah, because I told you not to tell anyone, Ben. Because it's like, cool, 18's coming out and that looks kind of interesting. And I'm like, yeah, it does. And just like, would you be interested in playing some of those older games? No. All right. But it's fun. And I certainly wouldn't get angry if a kid thought something was dull or outdated or something, because I'm sure there's something that they would be interested in that would surprise us. And
going off like all this stuff, an obvious thing, remakes. When companies reimagine a game for a new generation, that's why I love good remakes. Like RE2, for us, we still have the original version that we like. A lot of us love, and that's never going to change for us. But for like newer people, in some way, they get to experience the greatness of RE2. It's a different game. It's obviously a remake. But like I love that. I love when good remakes are done because it reinterprets the game for a new generation and they get it. They're like, this is a great game. It's like, yes, it's not the same exact game, but yes, I'm glad you love this.
How dope is it that so many people are going to get to experience Link's Awakening for the first time? That is awesome.
That'll be an interesting test because it looks like the same game, obviously, dressed up, but just
I thought you were going to say Final Fantasy VII remake. I was like, that's going to be like.
Well,
I want to talk to people like that's your first time playing. I can't wait to talk to someone who's like, you've never played the original? Okay, what did you think? This would be awesome. Like, how did you hate it? Did you love it? Like, oh, this is great. Like, I like that.
Yeah. Our last email comes in from Adam. Who asks, are video games a service to the public or are they creative forms of expression? To give a non-video game example, simply because it's the most recent one I can pull from, not long ago, the director of the upcoming live-action Sonic movie tweeted a message with regards to the overwhelming amount of negative feedback his film, specifically the design of Sonic, received, and he relented and announced Sonic's design will be changed, allegedly for the better. It's both sad and fascinating to me because while so many people are applauding this tweet and seeing an individual making things right, I see it as an individual having been pressured to adjust his and his team's original vision. I feel this kind of backlash by the public happens in the game industry with regularity. Sekiro and the scrutinization of its intended difficulty and demand for it to be adjusted is also an example of this. At first, I was going to craft a question regarding Twitter, and if it as a platform for communication has become more detrimental than helpful, it has. That was me. With regards to consumer feedback over video games, but now my reflections on this have led me to the question I initially gave. If games are a service to the public, then public outcry for the game to change is necessary. But if games are to be treated as works of expression and art form, then the outcry becomes something that is at best a hindrance to whatever is being attempted. It appears to me, at least, with the game industry, we currently expect and want it both ways. And perhaps the answer to the question I pose, whatever it may be, is partly due to why Roger Ebert had notoriously said video games can never be art.
Yeah, screw Roger Ebert, first of all.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. But
yeah, that's ridiculous, man.
It is.
That's a very pompous stance to take. I think this. I'll give you an example because the same thing just happened to Bloodstained, and that was fascinating that they just redesigned Bloodstained because they had a lot of negative reaction. And I think the difference is Sonic the Hedgehog is a movie that was coming out already, and Bloodstained is a Kickstarter. So Bloodstained very much is, I want all of you to be a part of this. So I think it depends on what the vision not only is for the creator for the product, but the vision for the development of that product as well. So I think Iga's in a position where he's like, I want to hear your negative feedback because we can change it. Like, this is a new IP. I'm not beholden to anyone for like what this character should look like. I can, do whatever I want. And so there might be a happy medium between what you expect and what I expect, and maybe we'll find something, in the middle, and that's what we'll find at the end of the day. Where with Sonic, it's like I don't think any good will come of that. It's like they're going to remake Sonic and people are going to hate that one too. And then now everyone's going to be upset about everything, as opposed to just like, hey, if this is going to be a train wreck, let's just get some popcorn and we'll watch these two trains drive right into each other, and that'll be that.
See, I don't view it as an either or situation, because with these games, like, of course I'm sure they love being as creative as possible. I'm sure they do have a vision that they want to accomplish. But at the end of the day, they also got to get people to see or play or read the thing.
Yeah.
And so I think that's why you have different segments of a game. That's why you have people working on the design. That's why you have people working on how it looks. That's why you have people working on how to market it. It's like, they're trying to be both at the same time. They're trying to fulfill this vision and get as many people to see it as possible. And I think those things influence each other inevitably, right? And so, like, if they want to change the design because they feel like they should, they have that right.
Oh, of course, yeah.
I don't know, Damiani, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I do think there's a connection between the two. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. I think an important thing to also consider is that in Sonic the Hedgehog's case, it's part of a commercialized machine. It is designed to make money, and like it's trying to sell essentially, and it's a product ultimately. Mm-hmm. And I feel like something like a movie like Sonic the Hedgehog, while there are areas where people can show their creative talents in that project, ultimately it's part of it's like everyone's part of a cog in a larger machine trying to make that movie. It's part of like a more like manufactured process. It's not like what you call like an art film, or it's not trying. It's I being very careful what I say here, but like basically I would. Well, I'll honestly say, like, Sonic's not trying to be like an artistic expression film. I don't think that was like the intended goal, was to be like, hey, we have a vision for Sonic and we really want to tell this story and show this. Like, there'd have to be like a meaning behind it. Like give me a justification why you're going with that. And it's honestly like, no, we just want to make a Sonic film that fans love. Like, it sounds like that's been the messaging. And right. So when they're hearing feedback, it makes sense. Like, oh, we are trying to make a film that appeals to Sonic fans and people want to see this. And so if you're all upset with this, we should change it. So that all feels like justifiable to me, and they're doing the thing. It's not compromising any vision in that case. Mm-hmm. Whereas in other circumstances, I could see like someone has a film or game they want to create, and we have a specific vision for this game. I'm going to use a Hideo Kojima game. He obviously has a very distinct vision for all of his projects that he's ever worked on, I feel like. And feedback from fans, it's like, okay, maybe I'll take that into consideration in the future, but I'm not changing this current game. Like, I'm not going to change Metal Gear Solid 5 or Death Stranding. I'm not going to change this because people are saying, I don't like how that looks and stuff. He probably like, no, I have a distinct reason why I'm doing this. Everything in here has a purpose. I have created this world. I've worked with these talented people. This is what we want to deliver. And then we will take your criticisms and praises based on this. But like, I feel like Hideo Kojima being forced to adjust Death Stranding at some point because of like there's some outcry at some point. That is like, oh no, please don't let that happen. Like, this is like that. Hideo Kojima has a creative vision. Do not compromise on that, please. Like that don't do that. I don't want to see that happen, and don't give in to any like complaints from people, because wait till you play the thing, like to experience the finished thing, then you could start complaining about it, and then let it affect his future work.
Yeah, I think those are really good points that you brought up, Damiani. I did think it was very funny that you specifically brought up Hideo Kojima and Death Stranding, because I don't know if anybody has ever had less creative limitation than he
Yeah,
does on
It's
that.
like, I mean, yeah, like that's the thing. If you saw what if the media,
I think he's doing whatever he wants.
yeah, what if the narrative in the media changed to like Hideo Kojima needs to change this now? Like it just
Right.
doesn't look right. It's like, oh, really? Like, how can you say that? I mean, you can, but it's so original looking. It's like, why would you? It's just beyond me. I don't know.
I think the only way that could happen is if we started seeing stuff and it's like, this is making too much sense. This needs to make less
Oh yeah,
sense.
like if we start
I'm
understanding
I'm starting
it,
to understand
Yeah, I
this.
think I'm getting it, and that's just not right. Kojima,
yeah. Once we figure out the baby's meaning, it's like, oh, okay, like
Right.
Kojima, maybe you got to try harder now, bud.
But to answer the question, I think the games, TV shows, film, comics, whatever, that's art. I think Twitter, Kickstarter, Reddit, those are the services. Like that's the,
Yeah.
because they have to have a means to communicate this. I just think in as far as Sonic is concerned, once that first trailer comes out for a movie, way too late to make changes. Way too late. Like make an animation of just Sonic jumping around and release that, and then everyone's like, wait a minute, like we're still shooting some stuff. It's like now we can maybe make some changes, but yeah, a couple months out is not the time. To redirect.
apparently it's happening though.
Gulp.
Thank you to everybody who wrote in emails. If you would like to send in an email, and please email us, the email address is askeasyallies@gmail.com. Once again, the address is askeasyallies@gmail.com. Big thank you to my panelists, Brandon Jones and Michael Damiani. And of course, the biggest thank you to you guys, everybody watching. This was fun. I had a lot of fun talking about this stuff. And I'm sure we'll have fun on the next Frame Trap. See you then.